by the math hour, long as he's brewed, a reel of funnish ficts about the she, how first of all, and on second thoughts, and the thirds that charm him girl a love, and fourth or more and filthily with bag from Oxatown, and bar occidents, and proper accidents, and hop to hill and hexen shoes, in fine the whole damning letter. And in point of heat, when he landed in our lands Leinster, 3, because it's run on the mountain and river system of saved and solemn nuns, for the twice decame time of Lipton's strong-bowed launch, the Lady Eva, in a tan suit of sails, for when all them allied sloopers was ventilated in their poppos and sliding down by creek and beak, stole snaking out to sea. He converted its natives, name saints, young ordnans, Madeira heads, and old unwished PT publicans, through the medium of znigsnacks, with satiric zeal, to put off the Barcelonas. 5. They were plumped and plumed and jerried and citizens and racers, and cinnamon-hued. From their pecaminous corpulums, greetings, Mr. Dane, and kiss on their butts, master, as often as they came within bloodshot of that other familiar temple, and showed him the Celestine way to by his Tristar, and his flop hat-trick, and his perihum-drum-dum-and-num nostrums, that he learned in Himbuktu. 6. Creeping Crawley's Petery Parley, banished to his native Ireland from Erring under Ryan. And that same Gallo-Roman cultus is very prevalent up to this windiest of land of miseries, all over what was before aboots a land of nods, in spite of all the blut, all the bram, all the brawn, all the brile, that was shod, that was shat, that was shuck all the while, for our massangre moss hungry people, the at Wicker works. 7. Had our retrospectable fear-father Gatch much tatches? Still hold forward to their healing, and 1. That is to cite when cleared affections vulgar and decimating. By leave in the old waits down upon the Swanee, innovated by him, the Prenche di Propagandi, the chrism for the Christmas, the pillar of the perished, and the rock of rail reality. And it is veritably belied, we belove, that not all sods of a soup cans that's in the Queen's pottage post, and not all finds of greened gold that the Indus contains, would over-Hindoos them, O.P., to steeple change back once from their office workship, and twice on Sundays, to their ancient flash and crash habits of old Palestine, ere beam slewed cable. 2. They just spirits a body away. Or Dart's hair, live wire, fired Benjamin Funkling out of empire, sin right-hand son, which, Cummel, having listed curefully to the interlooking, and the underlacking of her 29 shifts, or his continental's curses, Pummel, apostrophized Burns, and Flemings, and Furnaces, and Bill Hayeses, and Ellishley Hots, Hock, they, T.A. capital W, sick or whole, stiff or sober, let drop as a doom body drops, without another ostre of God's word either ways, in their own lineal descendants, as Priesto as Puddywhack. 3. Potato patted back. 4. Dumper, the misuse. And as we gang along to Gigglehouse, talking of Molniak's manias and missions for maids to scotch the slang and leather coats for Murty Magdies, of course this has blame all in that Mediterranean world to say to, blessed by point of the graces, his private's judgments. 5. Fox him, the leggy coat. When, so to put it, disparito, duspururo, desterado, despertieux, or, saving his presence for his own one friend, Beveridge, con the Chocron, but to return for a moment from the reptile's age. 6. Do he not know that walls had wars? Herringman is now king. This is modern times. To the coxswain on the first landing, page Aîné Rivière, if the pretty Lady Elizabeth, Hotel des Ruines, she laid her bat sleeve for him to trouvers tell love on the Ides of Valentinos at idleness floods area Isolade, lives lonely daughter with the Comes ti chiami of Prima Vista, abroad suddenly, and beauty alone of all dare say when now, uncrowned, deceptored, in what niche of time, 1. Macross Abbey, with the creepers taken off, is she, or where in the rose world trysting, that was the belle of La Chapelle, shapely Lizelle, and the peg of my heart of all the temple, or on whose limbs to lave her semi-cupious eyes, now kindling themselves, are brightening, too, joke and jilt will have their tilt. Oh, she who then, for 32 MP, old time to be precise, according to all three doctors' Waterburys, that was MacAuliffe, and poor Macbeth, and poor McGimley, to the tickle-ticks, of the synchronisms, all louchening, a time also confirmed 7 centuries later by the quatern medical Johnny, poor old McAdoo MacDollet, with notary, 3, old Mamadou Joram and Raw Rogeram, whose presence was required by law of divine foresight and decretal of the Doge, who, after the first compliments, 4, why have these pure-eyed blondes, those large, flexible ears, made darkest daylight, gave him then that vantage of a Blenkinsop's cuddle bath at her proper mitts, if she then, the then that matters, but, seigneur, she could never have forefelt, as she yet will fear feel, when the love next breaks out, such a cool, cold douche as him, the totterer, the 4 flights, the charmer, doubling back in no time, 5, Pomeroy Roach of Portobello, or the Wreck of the Ragamuffin. By and by, when salt water he wash him these Icelands, oh, alors, to mount miss the woods of Fogloot, under that chemise de fer and a vatry-proof name, Multa Lucy. Would it wash? With a cheek white peaceful as, when shall say, a single professed Clare's. 6. No wonder Miss Dutch took to Wales, and she descended from that Ardblockwahy. And his wash-a-wash, tub-a-tub-tub, and his diagnoser's lamp-blick, to pure where they were hornest girls, to buy her in par jour, il you play, nunc and tunk, and for simper, and other dual mavornines in plurable numbers, from Arklow Wicklow to Love Super Luck, come messes, come mams, and touch your spot price, for 'twas he was the born suborna man, on behalf of an oldest, ablished firma of wine-bakers, Lagrima and Gemity, later on, his craft ebbing, invoked by the un-Irish title, Grindings of Nash. 7. The Buckley with the Russell's hat is Potemkin, but I'm blowed if I knowed who the slave is doing behind the curtain. The one and only, unique bar none, of St. Ives by Land's End, Cornwall, man, ship me silver. It must have been, a terrible mavroo mavon, to cynamite up the old Adam he used to, such a finale, and that's flat as Tut's foot, for who. The poor girl, a lonely Peggy, given the bird so insulated as Crampton's pear tree, she shall earn bitter bed by third sweet of her face. And short wonder so many of the Tom, Thick and Tarry members in all their subsequious ages of our democracy tipped to console with her at her mirrorable grace-windowed hut one. Ochre, till the Ives of Man, the O'Neills and the O'Preans and the O'Hyans of Loughlanstown, and the O'Hollorans of Steny Batter, Holly boys all, Burry ripe who'll buy, 2, 6 and 7 the league, in jewellery and kicky shows and mad ornaments, and that's not the finish of it, would it were, but to think of him, foundling a Nellies of the second, 3, it's all round me hat I'll wear a drooping dido. Also, Cliptbus, the best was still there if the torso was gone, where he did and when he did, retriever to the last, 4. Have you ever thought of a hitching your stern and being ordained, Master Bootenfly? Here's me and Myrtle is twinkling to know. Escapes my forget-us now, was it dust-covered? Nom de lieu, on laps or street on down, through, for, or from a foe, by with us on a friend of the rectory, Vicarage Road, Bishop's Folly, Papesthorpe, after picket fences, stone walls, out and inns or oxers, for merry a falsehood whispered he to many a lillying earling. 5. To show they caught preferment, and to try to analyze that Ambo's pair of bracelines, a quarter-olean, trying to amarm all. 6. See the Freeman's Cuticatura by Fenella, of that Mitching Mitcher's bearded, but insensible virility and its gaulish moustaches, damned and groany, into her limited tough que tu épitre, laps at the same slaps for toweling ends, 7. Just one big booty's pot. In their delightful sex home, somehow at sea, oh, little oily head, slopers, brow and prickled ears, as though he, a notoriety, a foist edition, were a regular rather neo-novine babe. 8. Charles the Simples had an inferiority complex before he died a natural death. Well, dear moi, and granu, and ve vinctus, if that is what l'amour, that of gentle breast wraith is intaken, seems circling toward out yondest, it's life that's all chokered by that batch of grim rushers. Heaven help his hindmost, and mark mo, if the so greatly displeased theorems in the St. Lubbock's Day number of that most improving of round shows, Spice and West End Woman, utterly exhausted before publication, India Pepper edition shortly. Or for our indices, it begins to appear like it, par my fay, and there is no use for your pastry preaching for to cheese it either, or praying fresh flesh-blood claspers of young Catholic throats on Huggin Green, one where Buickley of the Glass and Bellows pumped the Rudgen General, to take warning by the prispast. Why? By cows, because man, in short, is how he is, più la gonna immobile, and therefore they want it, do it. And you could peep inside the cerebralized saucepan of this air ill-winded good-for-nobody. You would see in his house of thoughtsome, was you, that is, decontaminated enough to look discarnate, what a jetsam litterage of convolvuli of times lost or strayed, of lands derelict, and of tongues lagging to long a yams they o'er. Not only that, but search-lighting, beached, bashed, and bow-shelled à la mer, far ahead into faturity. Your own convolvulized, pick-ninnig catman would reel to jazzed fancy the novo taking place of what stale words whilom were woven with and fitted fairly featly for so. And equally so, the creme of the whole Faustian fustian, whether your Launer's lightsome or your soul ad schwermud, it is that, whenas the swift-shut scare ice of our pupil teacher taught duplex will hark back to laugh to you semi-bellically, that, though a day be as dense as a decade, no mouth has the might to set a mere bound to the march of a land's maul. 2. Matter of Bretagne and brute fierce. In half a syllab, half a salb, half a salb onward. 3. Bus mulla, cried Lord Wolseley, how me Aunt Maggle row. The beast of boredom, common sense, lurking gyrographically down inside his loose eating SS collar, is going of whist to you sternly how, plutonic love yaks twint platonic yearlings, you must, how, in undivided reality, draw the line somewhere. Narrator's note. The twins' marginal notes change sides here. End of narrator's note. Why my is likewise with his. Cos? Cossist? Your parn? You make what name? And in truth, the poor soul is between shift and shift, ere the death he has lived through becomes the life he is to die into. He had all but. He was rickets as to reasons, but the balance of his minds was stables. Lost himself or himself, some somnione shupiones. So switch over switch had he or he gazed. Murphy come, Murphy go, Murphy plant, Murphy grow. A myria Murphys in the lazily eye of his lapis. Views, fun, dove blin. 'Twas one of those deems a darkie's ding in the wood. Uter alterance or the interplay of bones in the womb. The turnpike under the great elm with Meering stone in foreground. 1. Brown Conra's dream country where the better lies blow. Narrator's note. At this point in the text, to be specific, above the line which begins views von Dublin, there is the geometrical figure of Euclid's first proposition, which may be described thus. Draw a horizontal line AL, with A as center, and AL as radius, draw a circle. With L as center and LA as radius, draw another circle. Label A and L also in Greek as alpha and lambda. Draw a triangle based on alpha lambda with its apex at pi, the point where the two circles intersect above the line. Draw dotted lines from A and L down to P, the point where the circles intersect below the line. End of narrator's note. Given now and Lynch, you take in all. Allow me. And heaving all jabraical expressions out of old Sir Isaac's too, or laughing Sally, are we going to be toad-haunted by their old pantyfox, so somebody something Bert for the rest of our secret scripture? Universal of specious arithmetic unsaid, A is for Anna like L is for live. The vortex, spring of sprung verse, the vertex. Ah, ha, Auntie Anne, you're apt to ape Auntie Anna live. Dawn gives rise, lo, lives love. Eve takes fall, la, laugh leaves alas. Aye, Auntie Anne, we're last of the lost, Lulu. 'Tis perfect. Now, lend your dapple eye here, mine's Presbyoperian, shill and wall. We see the coping jink, straight line, AL, in fig, the forest, from being continued, stops at lambda. 1. Ex duke pep off Carpenter Straight. The kids and dolls home. Make a cake. Mother Island there too. Allow me, encore. I bring down up and carry on. Now then, take this in. One of the most murmurable loose corollaries ever Ellis through his cooking class. Sarga, or the path of outgoing. With Olaf's centrum and Olaf's lambtail for his spokesman, circumscript a cyclone, allowed her, whoop, as round as the calf of an egg. Oh, dear me now. Another grand discovery after McPherson's ocean. You've actually induct one. What? Why, you haven't a passer. Fantastic, early, clever, surely doomed to swifts, alas, the gale of us. Match of a matchness, like your big doddatter. Docetism and Didycism, Mayataya, Tamas Raja Sattvas. In the vaudeville song, Gorotsky Golovaz's troubles, rocking his favourite turf coup in the smucking precincts of Lydia's, too. A vagrant need is a flagrant weed. With Mary Owens and Dolly Monk sea-sidling to edge his cropulence, and Blake Roach, Kingston and Dockrell, Ori scenting him from a first, our Papa Cocopottle. 3. Grand for blowing off steam when you walk up in the morning. Abraham Bradley King. Ting, 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 ting. By his magazine fall, lump slabs and all. 4. At the foot of Bagnabon, Banla's day was lost on one. Bene. But thunder and turf, it's not all over yet. One recalls Byzantium. The mystery repeats itself to date as our call-back mother, Gordiana, that was daughter to a tanner 5. We're all fond of our animal matter. Used to sing, as I think, now and then continuously over her posset pot, in her queer homologous humming bass Hester die and Ister die forever. 1. Sewing up the boily bursts in their buckskin shorts for big Captain Killycook and the Dukes of Killiney. Vanissus vanistatum, and for a night of thoughts and yours and a day, as great Shakespeare puns it, the vegetable cell and its private properties. In effect, I remember from the Yules gone by, poor little murrer of my hind, so she used indeed. When she gave me the Sunday-clothes, she hung up for Tailor coming and snuffed out the ghost in the candle at his old game of haunt the sleeper. Faithful departed. When I'm dreaming back like that, I begins to see we're only all telescopes, or the Comalium songs. Like when I droamed I was in Derry and was walking up with a thump in Thudderdown. Rest in peace. But to return. 2. Say where, a timber fill of twinkle-tinkle. What a wonderful memory you have, too. Wonderful morrow, straordinaire, bene. I bring town, oh, and carry nothing up my sleeve. Now, springing quickenly from the mudland louche, from Lucken, with all him as our elder, tit return a somersault. All's fair on all fours, as my instructor on strict mate. Watch, and you'll have the whole inkle. Allow, allow, gyro, gyro, gyro tondo. Hop, lala, as umpty herum as you see. Oh, dear me, that was very very nice indeed, and makes us a daintical pair of accomplices. The haves and the have-nots, a distinction. You allest for the const and me for umpting with a handle to it. Beve. Now, as will presently be felt, there's two tricklesome points, where our twain of doubling bicirculars, mating approximately in their sweet poi done loop into eath the archer. Look ye here, I fee where you me, the double-viewed seas. Non lemma squatch, vide per voice axiom, and I think as I'm squeeze in the lemon, stick me punctum, but for seminal rations I'd like long by Araxes to make a capital P for pride, down there on the bottom, one, Parsi French for the upholsterer would be delighted. Where Hodham and Heave, our monster Bilka, balked his board of paradise. Zwei Spaltung as fundamentalisch a Wiederherstellung. And let you go, Arminius, and make your modest mock pie out of humbles up your end, where your apexegesis will be a point of order. With aging groan grunt and a croak click cluck too, I'll pass out if the screw splits his strut. And my face age kink and kirkle, trying to make keep peep. 3. Targum, then Goligum. If you think I can't swim for it, suck some kale. Are you right there, Michael? Are you right? Do you think you can hold on by sitting tight? Well, of course, it's awful angelous. Still, I don't feel it's so dangerous. I'm right here, Nickel, and I'll write. Singing the top line, why, it suits me mighty fine. But Yaghags, Hogwarts, and Araquinontians, it's the muddest thick that was ever heard dump since eggs Mather got smothered in the plap of the fan. Now, to complete anglers, beloved Baranthirn and Hushtacan Hishtakach, join Alpha P and pull loose by dotties, and, to be more spermatically logoical, Eel-Pie and Pale Ale by trunkles. Allow me a line while I encloud a species. The Nike done it, like Pa, for, has it a tense? I pay. Innate little bondery, and as plain as a poke stiff. 5. The impudence of that in girls' things. Now, aqua in bucket. I'll make you to see, figuratively, the home of your eternal geomater. And if you flung her headdress on her from under her high-lows, you'd wheeze wise Salmonson set his seal on a hexen gown. Destiny, influence of design upon. 1. The shape of Donna Speranza of the Nation. Hiss, Argoan, Finn for fun. You spat your shower like a son of Sibernia, but let's have at it. Subtend to me now, pisk. Out of circumstances biog equalled, we carefully, if she pleats, lift by her seam, hem, and jabot at the spidsiest of her tricky cant, like thousands done before since Philly's calpered, ocon, the maid's apron of our A.L.P, fearfully, till its nether nadir is vortically where, allow me a right to 2 cute winkles, its navel's napex will have to be in B. You must approach near, for at is dark. Lobe. Prometheus, or the promise of provision, and light your match. Jeldy, and this is what you'll say, to Ogle eagle ogle me vidim me. What? Sluice pla, and their redneck, for hadn't we to gate see it pool the punker's bell? My and thy, the living spit of dead waters. 3. It is Sangannon's dream. Fastness firm of Hurdlebury fen, distinct and isoplural in its yours out of the double, sixuous parts, flumant, fluvi and flucius, midden wedge of the streams, your muddy old triagonal delta, fio mio, plain for you now, A.P.L.P pluvaville. Hop the hula girls, the no-niggered spot of her safety valve, first of all usquiluteral triangles, and why wouldn't she sit crest-logged like the lass that lured a Tailor, the constant of fluxion, Mahama Wetma, pride of the province, for, and all mankind? And when that tidal boar rushes up from the Afrantic, Olaf quarrons his bet und beer. 5. Whang goes the paddle, and whis wee woo. Ambages and their roll. Pa lickum la lickum apple pa. This it is an her, you see her it, which it whom you see it is her. And if you could go any better, we'd soon see some raffant scroomal a ripper. Quick's herit fossy ending. Well, so post that to your papens market, and you can haul up that langual parent, mate. I've read your tunks de message, for let it be taken that her littleness is of no magnitude, or again let it be granted that Doll the laziest can be dissimulant with all respects from Doll the fiercest. Thence must any what you like in the power of empthood be either greater than or less than ecclesiastical and celestial hierarchies, the ascending, the descending. The unitate we have in one, or hence shall the victorious ready eyes of ever two circumflixerent circlers never film in the ellipsities of their gyribouts those figures which are eternally repredictive of themselves. 1. I enjoy as good as anyone, which is unpassable. Corollary, the logos of someone to the base anything, when most characteristically mantis a minus, comes to nullum in the end. 2. Neither a soul to be saved nor a body to be kicked. Also, here is no it better than the sign of aha with his cosine lil, verswased uncoverswised, and all that's consecants and cotangencies, till perp stops repipping him, since her red tangles are all abscissant for limiting this tendency of our frivoltini sexuagesima 3, the boast of the town, to expense herself as sphere as possible. The peripatetic periphery, its alophysis. Paradismic perimeter, in all directions on the bend of the unbridled, the infinitesimals of her facets becoming manier and manier as the colliculum of her undescribables, one has thoughts of that eternal Rome, shrinks from shirtiness to shirts. 1. Hens, bens, are we soddy we missiled her? Scolium, there are trist sides to everything, but ichs on the freeds brings oichs to the field. Quid? Mother of us all. Oh, dear me, look at that now. I don't know, is it your spectre or my omination, but I'm glad you'd mentioned it. My lord, if that ain't just the beatenest lay I ever see. And a superb position. Quite a coincidence. Okay. Omnius collidimus. Canine Venus sublimated to Olydic Aphrodite. As Oliver Cromwell said when he slept over his grandmother. Kangaroo's feathers. Who in the name of Pundert ever believing you were that bold? But you're wholly moxed and gaping up the wrong paths, too. I call that a scumhead, as if you was seeing the geist that stays forenenst, you blessed simple-top dome fool. Where's your belested lieutenant's lamp? You must lap wander it down the bluishing reflection below. Her trunk's not her brain box. Here where the bulgy lines, I seen here the puncture. So he done it. Look, see her good. Well. Oh, dee, that's very lovely. Exclusivism, the ors, sores, and fours, which we like simper-spreech Hamiltons to fellow Selvertunes O'Hagans. 3. Pure ching-chong idiotism with anyway words all in one soluble. G-H-O-T-I smells fish. That's you. When he rolls over his arse and shows the height of his heels. Very lovely entirely, like a young sheep slang with its seafuncture. So analytical plausible, and by the powers of Mull Kelly, neighbour top sawyer, it will be a lozenge to me all my love. 4. The Doodles family, H.C.E, A.L.P, Issy, Mamalujo, Finnegans Wake, Sean, Shem. Hoodle doodle, fam. Narrator's note. Joyce here uses the following sigla or symbols. A capital E rotated to the right, 90 degrees, for Earwicker, H.C.E. Capital Delta for Anna Livia Plurabel. Capital T rotated 90 degrees to the right for Issy. Capital X for the 4 old men, known as Mamalujo. A square for Finnegans Wake. An upside-down V for Sean. A capital E without its central stroke for Shem. End of narrator's note. More better two-fellow we been speak copperheads. Ever thought about Guinnesses and the regrettable Parson Rome's advice? Want to join the police? One. Picking on Nick again, Pikey Mikey? You know you were always one of the bright ones, since a foot made you an unmentionable. Fakes. You know you're the diver's own smart gossoon, equal to your cell and one eagle to angly other. So you are, Hawks. You know you'll be dampened. So you will, one of these invernal days, but you will be carroty. 2. Early morning, Sir Dad Stevens said the first gentleman in Europe's prima noritur and ultimogeniture. Thick as a sock with some sediment in it for the sake of our darning wives. Whereupon, gate that when he stopped look time, he stopped long ground, who here hurry he would have ever the lost word, with a sweet me-ar-a-rai-ir Marie to read from the Jacobs 3. Bag, black sheep, have you any will? And a shy pull for tooth's sake of his arm jaws at the sly page of De Vere Foster, would and could candy-kissing P. Kevin to fress up the rinnerung and to ate by heart, Leo, I read, such a Spanish, escribibis, all your microscopes. Wont to nibble ravenostonoriously, is mum to me in bewonderment of his chipper tutor, for, while that other, by the help of his creative mind, offered to deliberate the mass from the booty of fight our same with the help of the bounty of food, sought to deliberate the mess from his corruptive mind, with his muffety cuffs, unconsciously graphicking with his sinister cyclops after trigomies and spirals wobbles, pursuing their roving Hamilton selves, and godolphing in fair love to see around the waist of Nolan's brown Jesus. For what a lubberly wide elephant for the men in the straits. Tore him no quarto, till that on him pour in sweat the jugglier's veins, quench his quill, no storm, no drang. In his Napier scrag stud out burst right tamquam taut ropes. Illustration. Spry him, call a bloodlecker. Where's Dr. Brassenars? As var it was in his priesterite. Oh, he must suffer from this misbelieving feastmaker to his non-credible fancy flame. 1. And she had to seek upon the piece to salve her suitikins sood. Ask for bastoon, late for mass, pray for blah blah black sheep. Sure, you could write any pip-pat passage, I bet, as fine as that mouthy lousy earwig yourself, Mick. Knock the muddy knickers. 2. Excuse that Christian brother's Irish. Christ's Church versus Belial. Dear, and he went on to scripper gentlemine born, my lady bred. Ascription of the active. He would pen for her, he would pine for her. 3. When she tripped against the briery bush, he profused her all over with curtsy flowers. How he would pat pun fun for all. 4. A nasty, lord, disagreeable game. With his frolicky frown or so, and his glumsome grin or other so. And how are you, Waggy? 5. Dear old Erasmus, very glad you are going to Penmark. Right to the corner, Grunny Grant. My animal his sorrowful, and Trieste, Trieste ate I my liver, se non è vero son trovatore. Oh, Jerry, he was so Harriet all. He was sad fellow, stifled. He was Mr. Mysterian, like a curate out of pensiony with a government job. All moan they, tears they, wails they, thumps they, fright they, shatter they, till the fear of the law. Look at this twitches. He was quis, floored on his plank craft of shittim wood. Look at him. Sink deep, or touch not the Cartesian spring. Want more ashes, griper? Proscription of the passive. How dismal he was lying low on his raw side, laying siege to Goblin Castle. And besouts that, how hyena's meal he was laying him long on his laugh side, lying sacked to Croak Partridge. Be thou war's roll ass in testions, quoth the Bhagavat Biscop Leach, and opes tipu soon here. If you could me lend till my Pascal's Condyle sahib, and the price of a plate of poultice. Punct, with best apologies, and merry money thanks to self for all the clericals, and again begs Gurdon for bestrispising on your munificence. Ensouling female sustains agonizing overman. Well, wiggy wagtail, and how are you, Yaggy? With a capital T for thirst. From here Bouvard to dear Picouchet. Blot. When the answerer is a lemon. Now, peel your eyes, my gins, and brush your satin hat, me elementator joyclid, son of a butt. She's mine, Joe Lojour, 1. I'd love to see the Macbeth's jerseys knacking spots off the plump duff's pants. Be skibbering's eagles, sweetheart of Whitney's archway. Watch him, having caught at the bifurking calamum in his bolsillos, the one like underwarp he had ever funnet without difficult ads, the abolished quick, signing away in happy next complete. Exquisite game of inspiration, I always adored your hand. Sesame to the rescues, the key signature. So could I too, and without the stroke of a pen, or for oral, key for crib, olchi dolchi, and a lunge ad lib. Can you write us a last line from Smith Jones Orbison, entreatedly in years Girialimpaloop, and I romain hop you good girl too. Lift your friends, you all and mo, fouvenirs puffed as pummers know, sweet willings and forget-of-nots. Once always my thoughts, to fall there at bare feet, Horace Warmer-Rose. 2 dies of one rafflement, ache, Benny ache. Outstamp and distribute him at the expense of his society, to be continued anon. All square and according to Cocker. And ook, Frankie. All the characters, 3. Gaggis tubes yourself. In the dream. This is how San Holy-Poly pools. And this, Pardonsky, is the way Romeo pull up a leaps. 1. He angel that I thought him, and he not able to spell heliotripes, Mr. Terribly Divil Cult. Pose the pen, man, way me does. Way or Miss Velatooth first show me how. 4th power to a real pogue. Bold strokes for your life. Tip. 4 centers of the fire serpentine. Heart, throat, navel, spleen, sacral, fontanella, intertemporal eye. This is steel. This is bark. This is starn. This is swift. This is Wiles. This is Shaw. This is Dublin Bay Yeats, too. When the dander rattles, how the peacocks prance. This is brave Danny, weeping his speech for the paupers. This is cool Connolly wiping his hearth with brave Danny. And this, regard, how Charles is skewered para-para-parnelly goes between brave Danny boy and the Connolly. Conception of the compromise and finding of a formula. Upanishadam, pop, spoken hath Larty Magori, ergo bra, proof, 3. The brown's the brown of Castle Hacknolan. Trout blowers, and Kev was wreathed with his pother. Fig and thistle, plot a pig and whistle. But that Jacoby feeling again for forbidden fruit, and my gorgeous Kevy too, he just loves his poppadoms, I judge. After all his autocratic writings of parables of family curbs and medleyed muddlingisms, Die Faroots of Culture and H.C.E, ideal present alone produces real future. Wouldn't one able rep of the triperforator all right blast through his pergaman, hit him where he lived, and do for the blessed self-Charles what I think smarter like it done for many another unpious of the hairy-dairy queer quandary firstings, till at length, you one bloody bragger, by mercy's stroke he measured his earth anyway, could not but reckon in his adder's badder-cadder way our frank son, who, to be plain, he fight him all time two fella long a kill dead finish bloody face blong you, was Miss O'Kane. Wince one's one. Rip. One. A bye-bye bing-bang, boys. See you Nutcracker Sunday. And his counting hands rose. With Ebenezer. Formalizer. Love's death how simple. In pics. Slotning's bane. Two. Chin chin child a man chap chop chap. Service superseding self. You can risk, mercy buck-up, and mind who you're pucking, flabby. Thanks ever so much, point carried. I can't say if it's the weight you strike me to the quick, or that red mass I was looking at, but at the present momentum, potential as I am, I'm seeing rainbogies rings round me. Honours to you, and may you be commended for our exhibitiveness. I'd love to take you for a bugaboo ride and play fun for all, if you'd only sit and be the ballasted bottle in the pork-a-barrel. You will deserve a roly-poly as long as from here to tomorrow. And to hell with them drift bombs and bottom trailers. If my mealy was bag enough, I'd send you a Toxus. By Saxon Chromaticus, you done that lovely for me. Didn't he now, Nubelina? Tiny mite, she stood here twas, with her listening in coiffure, her dream of Ensland's day last, and the glory fires of being presented, maid to majesty. 3. Wipe your glasses with what you know. And less is the pity, for she isn't the lollipops she easily might be, if she had, for a sample, Virginia's air of achievement. That might keep her from throwing Dolph. 4. If I'd more in the cups that peeves thee, you could cracksmith your rose tureens. Catastrophe and anabasis. As I was saying while retorting thanks, you make me a reborn of the cards. We're offers, boys, ambos. 5. All sings and all's howls. The rotary processes and its re-establishment of reciprocities. For I've flicked up all the crams as they crumbed from your tablum, singing Glory Allelosarum, cog it out, here goes a sum. So read we in Must Book, it tells, he profits most who bilks the best. Come si comprita con tititilascio, conquery conk, thigh, thigh, tickly thigh, liggery lag, tittery tot, leg in a bee, lug in a law, two at a tie, three on a thricky till Ohio, 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 miss. And that salubrated sickenage hour of yours have he spilled all my hesitancy. Forge away, sonny sim, sheep shop, bleating goad, it is the least of things I insty. Imagine it, my deep dark-red dullard. It is ours giving, not more, and only out for celebrating over the guilt of the gap of your hissy tendency. You are 100,000 times welcome, old wart sampler, hell be it you're just about as culpable as my Wolfell merger would be. The twofold truth and the conjunctive appetites of oppositional orexies. In effect, I could engage in an argument over you till you were republicly, royally, two-bally prussic blue in the shirt after. 1. From 3 shillings, a blue dye sacrifice. Creon fante di bestia. And if you're not your bloater's kipper, may I never curse again on that pint I took of Jameson's. All keen now, your rod, hook and sinker, all jubilee keen. Bid his hair, mine lubber. Where is that Quinn, but he snows it not, but what you that are my popular antithesis were born with a salver arm up your sleep. Chris Hagion, thou in shanty, thou in scanty shanty, thou in slanty scanty shanty, bide in your hush do. The Lord has not allowed you to shout. I plant my penstock in your postern china pot. Ave, and let it be to all remembrance. Vale, O vocation of maiding waters, too. Not guilty, but the manager was. He, ho, ho, ho. For all lang selvi stein. I defend you to champ my scullion's praises. To book alone belongs the lobe. 4 masters mead, 3 gig lamps, soapy geyser, the smell and gory McGusty. We'll mark tomorrow when we are making pilgrimage to Wabogrian with staff, scarf, and blessed wallet, and our aureoles round our neck and crufts, whereas and when heavy shoes Gordaddy, parent who offers sweetmeats, will gift uns his noblet surprise. With this laudable purpose and loud ability, let us be single-fied. Abnegation is adaptation. Betwixt me and thee, Hong Kong, item mispa en. Entered the cop, and how? Secures gubernant urbis terrorem. But while the dial are they dawdling over the mugs and the grubs, oiki impostolopolos, one. The divvy wants that babbling brook, dear Auntie Emma eats. Steady, stuvi avemus. Many manduk habemus, too. Strike the day off, the nightcaps on nigh. Gunny. We've had our day at triv and quad, and writ our bit as intermediates. Art, literature, politics, economy, chemistry, humanity, etc. Duty, the daughter of discipline, Cato. The great fire at the South City markets, Nero. Belief in giants and the banshee, Saul. A place for everything and everything in its place, Aristotle. Is the pen mightier than the sword, Julius Caesar. A successful career in the civil service, Pericles, 3. R.C., disengaged, good character, would help, no salary. The voice of nature in the forest, Ovid, 4. Where Lily is a lady found the nettle rash. Your favorite hero or heroine, Adam, Eve. On the benefits of recreation, Domitian, 5. Booba bippy bambuli, I can do as I like with what's me on, nyam. If standing stones could speak, Oedipus. Devotion to the feast of the indulgence of Portiuncula, Socrates. The Dublin Metropolitan Police sports at Ball's Bridge, Ajax. Describe in homely Anglian monosyllables the wreck of the Hesperus, Homer, 6. Able seaman's caution. What morals, if any, can be drawn from Dermot and Grania, Marcus Aurelius, 7. Rarely equal and distinct in all things. Do you approve of our existing parliamentary system? Alcibiades. The uses and abuses of insects, Lucretius. A visit to Guinness's brewery, Noah. Clubs, Plato. Advantages of the penny post, Horace. When is a pun not a pun? Isaac. Is the coeducation of animus and anima wholly desirable? Tiresias, 1. Jests and the beanstalk with a little rude hiding rod. What happened at Clontarf? Marius. Since our brother Jonathan signed the pledge, Diogenes, or the meditations of 2 young spinsters, Procne, Philomela. 2. Very like the whaled prophet in a spook eerie. Why we all love our little Lord Mayor, Abraham. Hengler's circus entertainment, Nestor. On thrift, Cincinnatus. 3. What sins is Pimmoney sans Paris? The Kettle Griffith Moynihan scheme for a new electricity supply, Leonidas. Travelling in the olden times, Jacob. 4. I've lost the place. Where was I? American lake poetry, Theocritus. The strangest dream that was ever half dreamt, Joseph. 5. Something happened that time I was asleep. Torn letters, or was there snow? Circumspection, Fabius. Our ally is the hills, Samson. Our Parnellites just towards Henry Tudor, Cain. Tell a friend in a chatty letter the fable of the grasshopper and the ant, Aesop. 6. Mish for his pain, Nick in his past, Santa Claus, Prometheus. The shame of slumdom, Lot. The Roman pontiffs and the Orthodox churches, Pompeius Magnus, Miltiades Strategas. 7. He has Togliaresti and Brodo all over his agrammatical parts of face, and as for that hippofox, Fizz, unlucky number, late for the christening. The 30-hour week, Solon. Compare the fistic styles of Jimmy Wilde and Jack Sharkey, Castor, Pollux. How to understand the deaf, Dionysius. Should ladies learn music or mathematics? Sappho. Glory be to St. Patrick, Moses. What is to be found in a dust heap? Job. The value of circumstantial evidence, Catalina. Should spelling, Cadmus. Outcasts in India, Ezekiel. Collecting pewter, Solomon. You, Themistocles. 8. A, monsieur, ou, monsieur, you, monsieur, nenny, no, monsieur. Proper and regular diet necessity for, Vitellius. 9. Ere we hit the hay, brothers, let's have that response to prayer. If you do it now, Darius. Delays are dangerous, Xenophon. Vite à vite, Gobelin. 10, 7, 6, 9. Mark soonly will be in a split second per the chancellery of his exchequer. More, Luke, your beef tay's fizzing over. On, Pantocracy. Do, by Newton. 3, interchangeability. Car, naturality. Cush, superfetation. 1. Kish is for anti... Narrator's note. The left margin has a childish line drawing of the gesture of thumbing the nose. There is a V for the nose and the hand with thumb and finger spread. End of narrator's note. She, stab immobilism. Shocked, periodicity. Oct, consummation. Ni, interpenetrativeness. Geg, predicament. 2. And gags for school and crossbuns and hopes he'll enjoy himself over our drawings on the line. Narrator's note. The left margin here has the crossbones with the upper ends somewhat chewed. End of narrator's note. Cacopoetic liporin is of the ungumptious. Their feed begins. Balance of the factual by the theoric books and cooks amalgamated. Night letter. With our best Yuletide greetings to Pep and Memmy and the old folkers below and beyond, wishing them all very merry incarnations in this land of the living and plenty of pre-prosperousness through their coming new yonks. From Jake, Jack, and little Sususi, the babes that mean too. It may not or may be a no concern of the Guinnesses, but that the fright of his light in balbutions hides aback in the doom of the balk of the deaf, but that the height of his life, from a bride's eye standpoint, is when a man that means a mountain, barring his distance, wades a lymph that plays the lazy, winning she likes, yet that pride that bogs the party begs the glory of a wake, while the scheme is like a rumba round me garden. Alethesis, with perhelps the prop of a prompt to them, was now or never in etherea deserta, as in granda suburbia, with fin-fan faunas, rurik or cospolite, for much or moment in dispute. Why for had they? It is Iberio-Miletians and Arglo-Norman donated him birth of an ocean that was breeder to sweater slaves, as Mr. Boulder forced in their waist. And as for Ibdullin, what of him, Anna? that their tall tubular high-fidelity dialer, as modern as tomorrow afternoon and in appearance up to the minute, hearing that anybody in that rude duchy of Wallenstown schemed to have the wrong type of date, equipped with super-shielded umbrella antennas for distance getting, and connected by the magnetic links of a Bellini-Tosti coupling system with a vital tone speaker capable of capturing sky bodies, hovercraft emittances, key clickings, Vatican cleaners, due to woman-formed mobile or man-made static, and bawling the whole ham shack and wobble down in an aluminium sounds pound so as to serve him up a meligo-turny merry-go-round, electrically filtered for all Irish earths and owns. This harmonic condenser enginium, the mole, they caused to be worked from a magazine battery called the Mim-Bim-Bim patent number 1132, Thor Peterson and Sins, Jonsborg, Selverbergen, which was tuned up by twin triodic single-valve lax slipping along as if they're lifting deep under on it, with a hydrocephalus enlargement, a gain control of circumcentric megacycles, ranging from the antidulibnium onto the serostautarian. They finally caused, almost leastways brung it about somehows, that, the pip of the lin, to penetrate in through his auricular forficle, known as the waking far sleeper, mono-fractured by Pierce O'Reilly, timpan founder, Eustace Strait, Ballyauclia, a meatus conch culpable of condensing Noll and Santry, and the 40 routes of Corthy with the consortiums of the Brithwick Simmons Guild, the Rope Makers Reunion, the Variegated Peddlers Baringoy Bnibel Third, the Ascold Alexander crowds of the O'Keefe Rosses and Ross O'Keefes of Zaswoking, the League of Yahooth, OSV, so as to lull the bygone doze they arborized around up his corpulent front and down his reactionary buckling. Hummer, Envil, and Stirrup, the man of Erin, Thor's curly mane for you. Lil the labyrinth of his autological life. House of Call is all their evenbreds, though its cartomants hallucinate like an erection in the night, the mummery of whose deed, a lure of Noor, emerges a mirage in a mirror, for it is whereby muzzin mist for 1 watt-hour, bylaws below, till time jings please, that host of a battlefield, the bulkily hulk-white, hunter's pink of face, an oral aureoled, is in on about to be unbulging an O'Connell's, the true one, all Cetic, a lucky buck, pledge of the stoop, while on his Canterbury bell's eyes wink wicketing intil the teller, oin of an oustman in skull of scand. Yet is it, this ale of man, for him our hobber jointed, just a tug and a fistful, as for Coulson, the Patagorian, chieftain of Choken-chuckers, and his moiety giant, under the Fomer dispensation, when he pull up to the turfy cork by the grates of Gobble out of Loch Nake. When precious be to our hoary frother, the pop gave his sullen bullet action, and bilge slid a movement of catharic emulsipotion down the sloppery slide of a slanty to tilted lifty landsmen, Arlamin, which, in the ambit of its orbit, heaved a sinker-sailor alongside of a drinker-drainer from the Basses brothers. Those two they got theirs. It was long after once there was a Leland in the luffing, or it was less after lives Thor a Tailor in the tawn at all, or it was not before he drew out the model of a Kersse by jerking his dressing, but or it was not before athwartships he buttoned-hailed the Norwegian's capstan. So he sought with the lobe-stir claw of his propencil the clue of the wixer in his ear. O Lord of the barrels, come forth from Anow, I have not mislaid the key of Ephas time. O Anna, bright lady, come forth from then Anow, I have not left temptation in the path of the sweeper of the threshold. Oh. But first, strong both, they would deal death to a drinking. Link of a leader, double in it, slake your third thoughts awake with it. Our svalves are ruin. We rescue thee, O Bass, from the damp earth, and honour thee, O Connie Bell, with mouth burial. So was done, neat and trig. Up, draft, and wet them. Then sagged he to the ship's husband, and in his translatentic Norwegian Kelpian, where can I catch or hook alive a suit and souterkins? Suit? Said the ship's husband, knowing the language. Here is tailoring. Ash and Whitehead, close-chopped successor to. A horror, he said, canting around to that bedest his friend, the tailor, for phoenixed culpure, chunk pulley muchy chink topside number 1 fella, makin' capstan, makin' shoot. Manning to sale of clothes for his lady her master, who's to be precise of a pair of trousers under the pattern of a cassock. Let me prove, I pray thee, but this once, says the men garments, saving the mouth brand from his fire pool. He spit in his face, begging, he taped the raw baste, paddin', he planked his pledge as div as a dab, and he tog his fringe sleeve, buttock lad for whale. Alloy for a lay, and this tooth for that sooth, lick it and like it, a barter a patter, and plenty good enough, neighbour Norrie's every bit and grain. And the ship's husband broke cursed after him to hail the logger. Stolp, thief, stolp, come back to my Eran. And the Norwegian's captain swarrad he'd some blowfish out of schooling, all like a hood. Below Tailor he eken heaven sits. But they broken waters, and they made whole waters that they surfed bark to the lots of his water. And away he yankered on the Norwegian run, so that 7 sailing sunnin round us was he breast bare to the brine bath, where bottoms out has fathoms full, from Franz Jose land till Cabo Tormendoso, even starred and rising soon, up the river Tannery and down the Gulf des Ombres. 30 days and 50 nights. Enjoy yourself, O mermen, and the tides made, veer and haul, and the times marred, rear and fall, and holy bucket didn't he rain. Hump, hump, base the broad as in laugh, with a quick pity snip that we half bit a second. I will do that, says Kersse, meaning staying the rig out for her wife's lairdship. Net so, they hunched back at the ear-picker. But old Sporty, as nth lord and Rye House Raina, he naught feared crimp or cramp of shore sharks, plotsome to get some. It was whole neat godtab of Errol Lorritz off his Cape of Good Hope, and his triple-trice Loretta lady, a Mahomet to his Mountain, with Twinkie her stone hairpins, only not, if not, a queen of Frances, their telling tabled, who was for his seeming a casket through the heavenly, nay, heart of the sweet. Had he house, would he keep her as neat as a fiddle? But in the meal tub, it was old Ye's sports bargain, what rarer of recent, an occasional conformity he, with Muggleton mockers, all wages all along most certainly allowed, as pilgrimages grace to petitionists of right, of the 3 blend cupstumeries with their customed spirits, the Gill Gob, the Berkeley Bump, the Wallasey Wanderlook, having their Cayley Gaily and his Shanty Irish. Group drink cards marks grope think cards, or how reads Rotary, jure of a crest end, respecting the other dogs' churches. So long plebs will be plebs, but plebs by low-frequency amplification may later agree to have another. For the people of the shed are the sure ads of all quorum. Lorimers and leather sellers, skinners and salters, pewterers and paper stainers, parish clerks, Fletcher boyers, girdlers, mercers, cordwainers, and first and not last, the weavers. Our library he is hoping to ye public. Inholder, upholder. Set songs, say forth, go to it, agitator. They bass a bosuned over the flower of their house. Go down, Moses, and skeep thy Bible be. I will do that, a cordial by my hand, and in the flap of a jacket, their old cousin, as sober as the ship's husband who was one of my godfather when he told me so, while upon I am now well and durily satisfied after the boon the widower, according to Ryder, following no monia, he is consistently blown to atoms. So head me boy who keeps the book. Whereafter behest his suzerain-law the thing, and the pilsner had the bar, Reckna Jarl, they called him Rogan, or I'll call him, still passing the change of pennies, pengy pigses, a several sort of coin in livery, pushed their whisper in his herring, seemed, a some ship-shep sort of oxed stalement, a dear gadai, to has-be anyone doing duty for Duff Point of Darkland compers, the same to the good end as velos discharge, after which he had exempted more than often for the ballast of his natural life. And through a cast, a few pigses and hare you are, and no chicking, tribune's tribute, if you guess mimic meaning. Meanly in his lewd brogue, take your 10 coppels token, with this good six-trick from mine run bag of jewels. Numbers that is summas, that is top tip, that is bottom bay, that is toomies, that is digs, that is hears, in the frame shape of hard metal. For we all would fain make glories, it is mindly well minted. Thus, as count the costs of liquid courage, a bullion gauger, stowed stivers, penged upon in bulk and hold, fight great Finnegans, brave little Bratton, keen his kenning, the queeriest of the crew, with that fellow fearing for his own misshapes, should he be himself namesakely a foully fallen descendant from the peripulator, sued towards Mead, Reed, and Linduff, rubbing the hodden son of a pookle, leaden be light, lather be dry, and it be drowned on all the else beside, how the camel, and where the devil, or when the finicking, or why the funnicking, who caused the scaffolding to be first removed, you give orders, babbling, where their ready Mead answer, when on the QT, the correspondent, in conflict of evidence, drew a kick at witness, but missed, and for whom in the Difflins Kitty removed the planks they were wanted. Boo! Both old characters coming around and some mumming a rum-drum, scrum-crum in a humptedum wall to Did you a dive? 81. Propello pelomberalta, B. Rushes for waterman ranting his row, seed 3. Where the muddy scrim ball, and the ladies scream all, him. And furthermore, let legend go lore of it, that mortar scene, so quimpty-dwimpty, what a dusty it raised arbor. But thus leaped to the lad at the top of the ladder, so sappers resorted, why the sinner the batter. Ho, 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 hook, la, 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 la. Hillary, rillery, give us grist to our millery. A push-pull, QQ, quiescence, PP, with extra vent intervalve coupling. The savest laugh in the world. Paradox mutos caring that here, in the present use of Ballyclay, Bartholomew, where their Dutch uncler, mine hosts, and serves them dramwell right for a boor's interior, Homeric, Van Homeric, that salve that delvers the screen Atlantis, and has ring round as world-wise Eve her sins, pip, 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 will pip, future pip, feature pip, footloose past cast, with spare shins and flash substittles of nurse made easy from a nephew, mind the narrator, but give the devil his, so long as those sons of a blitz call the tuon et tuon, and ponder alout makes the third, let there be Jew. That's all Marta Porta, but what about this Dolph, this day, who were one time uncles themselves, when the youthful of his yorn shook the buckle in his bed, twilled alongside in wiping the rice associated with their wetting. The lapple of his thighs, his ros in solna vernere, and he siccumed of homnis terror. She wends to school us in her slalom. There were no peanuts in her formalgia, so no wumble she tumbled for his famous royals divorce. Don't him forget, a butcher artst out of college trainity. Diddle he daddle a drop at the cradler, on delight me bold laddie was stitched? Knit where? And they addled, or ere the cry of their tongues would be uptide dead, shuffle bottom a-sidled, plus his ducks for his drills, an inlay of a little more lining moth be licensed all at once, be these same tokens, for giving a brass rap, neither a whole length nor a short shift, so full as all were concerned. Burny-faced, shiply after, shoply after, at an angle of lag, let flow, brebble, and brebble, and so forth, heavy side breathing, came up with them and checked me jewel, shot the 3 tailors, butting back to Moyle Herring, bumpers beam and button, roller and whiter, after the bill of his own deluge, the sea samped as skibber breezed in, dripping, through the sheets in the wind, the tights of his trunks a tickle to tackle, and his rub-me-lucky truss rehorsing the poofed skirts of his overhaul. He left his stick up in his hand to show them none ill feeling. What though, for all apprentices, it had a mushroom on it, while he faced them front to back. Then parasols round quite taken attack, exclaiming, "How cool's Evie Brawley?" "Good marams," sagged he, "fresh watties, and boa stirred all," as he put into beer hiven, nogi sogi first, caboodle second, jilling to windwards, as he made stracks for that o'er sound the snarsty way. So with his horn pipe lugging the lee off their mouth organs, with his tilt too taut for his tammy all a slaunter, and his wicker on a wagger with its tag tucked up, with a good eastering and a good westering. And he asked from him how the hitch did do this, my fan sulkers, that none met the kid bollocks, which he certainly remembered, also where the hatch was he, and knew strandways, he's that fond such and son, a penincular framed of mind, for deed he was langselling to talk a holt of him, clown tough, tier, hog fjorten, cablen, cliff top, shelvling to bay up along to meadow, where cobbles, posh. Gibereen has coming in, by soon often, with folk wait for, and sad a raven evermore, tell Shinshan and all Francis for his kicker who, through the medium of Garrick. Puckelson Tiltold. That with some are proud invisors, how their Austravolians led them to infrareds, striking down and landing alow against our Aryan insulation resistance, two boards that beached Astwan. Witness Thane and Tisk and Henry. Pre-patricularly all they summed. Kishmet, bound to, and for landlord, noting, nodding, a coast to moor was cause to mere. Besides proof, plenty over proof, while they either took a heft, or the other swore his Eric, heave to, sploice the main brace, here's at you, Bruin Baroon, with a whistle for me thanks. Good marams and good merry mills, said good mother's gossip, bobbing his bowing both ways with the bents and skerries, when they were all in the old wall of Caraborg, and that they did overlive the hot air of Monty Bunkum upon the cold blasts of Metropolitos. Let their meads be the hoorie horn. Hibernating after 7 oak ages, fearsome where they were, he had gone dump in the Doomering this tide, where the paces would pickle him down to the button of his seat, and his cess old sauce airinly into the Bulgine, with the help of Divey and Joram's locker, and shut the door after him to make a rarely fine Rand's cattle of fish. Moria Mortimer, alla pallor over us, how oft had the ball she tried, and they laying low for his home gang in that eerie bleak mead, with fireball feast and turkey's tumult and paupers patch to provide his bum end. The 4 things your niggerhead needs to be fitting for the big water. He made the sign of the hammer. God's drought, he said, after a few days, thinking of all those bleakings, how Leif pauses. Here you are back on your Hawkins from Blazel the Brast to our Povertageses Portugal, the furt on the turn of the Hurdies, slave to trade, vassal of spices, and a dragon the market, and beturbed lurcher stripe, as were you soused me thought out of the mackerel. Els fells, said he, a compavin on Isis slant. Here's open hand legs for one old falker from the hame folk here in you's booth. So sell me Gundy, sagged the now waging Capon, with a wary posthumer's expletion. Shoots or go shootsel him, or where's that slob? A bit bite of Keeson's, he sagged, till Dennis, for this jantar, and let the Dublins roast Perus, or a stinger, he sagged, TD, on a Dorobred Kennedy's for Patrick Isansaki, on Svofro, or my old Relogians out of Tiempor, and when I'm sour to the tipple you can sink me lead, he sagged. And if I get can, sagged he, a puss-pull of Tom Tartrum. Thirst because homing hand give. Okie dokie, said the shop's housebound, for he was as deep as the North Star, and could talk seal a solder into tankers tolder, as might have said every man to his beast, and a treat for the trading scow, my cater million falls to you, and crop feed a stall. Ah, Fran. And he got and gave the expedient for Ombry Ambry will come ere what's the good word. He made the sign on the feaster, cloth be laid, and a disc of oysters for the swanker. Allah balla. He was the carelessest man I ever see, but he sure had the most sand. One fish ball with fixings, for a Dan of a Ben of a Finn of a son of a gun of a Gombolier. Experience, said he, son or mine, Shackleton Sultan. Up Varts and Atham, or this ogre Oslo worth us all, said he, like one familiar to the house, while Waldemar was healing it and Maldemar was towing it. So sick he was walking from the bowl at his food, and the mare crank he was waiting for the toe of his turn, till they plied him behaste on the fair. Say, bairn, no, how did he curse or hoot like the suit and sold our skins? Minded first breeches maker with considerable way on, and Humpsy Dumpsy, the munchant man, second snipped cut of the curter. A ninth for a ninth, take my word from it, and no mistake, they thrice told the tailor, and they knew the wide for too, the because of his so such. Ugly man fit him's hemp, but throats fill us all, and three's here's for repeat of the union. Place the scours war on your groot big Bailey Bill, he apologized, the O'Colonel power latterly distended from the O'Connor Dan, so premonitory himself that he was oblivious of the heads of host that rose before him from sheer Oscuro under its semblance of Mardel Mansk, like a dun-darting dolometer, with his molten hairs stuck in plusters upon it. Do you ken yon peak with its coast so green? Still tristfully a cape, for her his grawn Uel, in precious memory, and that proud grace to her, in gate a movely water, of smile a coolsome cup, with that rarefied air of a Mount Molency, and her quick little breaths, and her climbing colour. Take thee live will save thee wife. I'll think upon me lady. Should amorous anthropois call homo virtue, dinefar. The gems to the goom be she ne'er so sma. Obsit me man. Floodlift her ancient of rights regaining, so yesteryid, even remembrance, and greater grown then in the trifle of her days, a mouse, a mere tittle, trots off with the whole panoramacron picture. Her young free yoke, stilling his wander curses, jilt the spin of a curl, and jolt the broads of a boy. The Alexandrian captive conquest, Ethna pretty plume, hookly spake. Him her first lap, her his fast pal, for ditcher for plougher till deltas to port. While this glow world's lump is gloaming off, and hand in hand will grow. Through simpling years where the low castes have eaten of a millican honey and datish fruits, and a bannock of barley on Tam the Thatcher's palm. Oh, wonderness be wondernest, and now listeneth to me, vales of Mina. He would with say, nevertheless, that is to me mean. I always did me walsh and preach up ere we set to soap and fash. Now eats the vintner over these contents, oft with his sad, slow munch, for Backenham. Yet never shet it the brood of Ourowak, not for the legions of donners of Gamuels. I have performed the law in truth, for the Lord of the law, Taifalif. I have held out my hand for the holder of my heart in Annapolis, my Yuthrib city. Be ye then my protectors unto Mesopotamia before the gods of the city. Theirs is a gentleman's agreement, women's pledge, to slope through heather till the foot, join Andersoon and co. If the flowers of speech veiled the springs of me rising, the hiker I hill tapped, the mirk I missed me blizzard way. Not a knocker on his head, nor a nick number on the monument. With that colt brunt nat Elster wefting stinks from Alpicinia, wooving nihil nulls from Memoland, and wolving the overtones of the voice. But his spectrum only mergent crested from the irised sea and plight, calvitousness, loss, ngner, glidiness, unwill and snort. It might have been what you call your change of my life, but there's the chance of a night for my lifting. Hilly hollow, valley low, with the sounds and the scents in the morning. I shot be shoddied, throttle me, fine me cowheel forever, a squibotch the erstwhile ale Connor, for bringing briars to Bimbracken, and ringing rinbus round Demetrius, for, as you wrinkle rightly, bully blue domer, it sure shites Sturkis haunting histories round old volcanoes. We gin too near, and thus plenary indulgence makes columullas of us all. The time is for Tailor man tasting his tap. Tip-top tap, Mr. Mott. He made one summary, choke and murble in Lone's time, of his the three swallows like he was muzzling Moslems, and torched up as the fairy pangent flew down the Hisophern guts, a slake for the quicklining, to the tickle of his tube and the twabble of his fable-o, fibbing once upon a spray what a queer and queasy spree it was. Plumped. Which both did prompt. Crystal holder? Save Amsterdamster that had reminiscences in his netherlums. By the drope in his groin, Ali Slupa thinks the capon, plumbing his liners, we were heretofore. And by the coop of his gobbles, reach of the poward, thinks your girth fatter, apropos of his buxy silers, but where's Horace's court in Croupiers? I put him behind the oast house, sagged Puggleson, tuning wound on the teller, appeased the cue, that double diode dealer, and he's wallowing a wash swill of the Tara water. And it marined down his gargantus trums athletic, like the marouses of the gulp strewn. The curse of Wolaf's on him, shitataya, he sagged in the furnicula, and at where or not at where, I'm seeing no stretcher, for I carst his Morrison goat in troppers with them new buckle nooses behind the fire behame in the oast house. Hops, sagged he. Smoke and coke choke, laughed, till the tear trickled down a thigh the loafers all, but a sheep's whose pants that swished to the Lord he hadn't, and the starer his story was told to, who felt that the fiery fornax being thirst on him motophysically, as Omar sometimes notes, such a situation, debauchedly to be watched for, would empty him down to the ground. And hope-be-dope, sagged he, and the enderer, now deeply hypnotized, or hope seized doper himself. And curse him, sagged he, after in under tarapooling, and the shines he cuts, shiner, the screeder, the stitchine snider, adapted to no storsiums in his buttonholder, commanished, sagged he, fuyu fuku, which goes in the ways smoking publics, sagged he, bomb-boosting to be in the elitist civil row faction for a double-brasted navigator. Flick off that wide-ask big head, sagged he, the big bag of my hammed till him tollaroon, sagged he, with his pudney bun bruff cost when he was meet the band. I will put his fleas of wood in the flour, and he sagged, be hunt on the oats hus, the not well-made one, sagged he, the curse of my arms or appall this most unmentionablest of men, mundering Erisk, if he didn't scold at him all the shimps' names in his gitter. A coat-hemmed gusset sower, sagged he, his first cudgeon is an invalet in the United Stables, which is not feed tonight's a curtle-offel fisk, and he is that woe-worsted, waste-ended shoot-maker, whatever poked a noodle in a clough. So, for the second try on all the meeting of the Acaras had it. How he heist his bungle or his shorter, and cut the pointer off his pora, and lay off a fella golfier, and drew McGree back to Brighton-upon-the-Baltic, from our Luns, run towers, bag till treaty hoors a wook. Ugh! Stuff, Taff, stuff, interjoked it, his wife's hope's end, to the both of them consistently. Come back to my Aileen. Ill luck to it, blasphemed the now raging scamptail, inflating furies outstrews his camel skins, the flashlight of his ire wackering from the eye-winker on his mast-top. And aye far he fared him from Aphericarina, and yea near he night till blow land bear ring, bacon be the brazen sung, buttered be the snows, and the sea shoaled and the saw squalled, and soaking scupper didn't he drain. A pause. Infernal machinery, serial number Bully's Acre Dig Kerdig, having thus passed the buck to Billy back from Jack, Finder the keeper. As the baffling yarn sailed in circles, it was now high tide, for the remaining pair of snipers to be suitably punished, till they had, like the pervious Earl Kenner done, literally no more powers to their elbow. Ignorancers bliss, therefore, they're not to say rifle but target, none too wise folly, poor fish, he is eating, he is spun, is milked, he dives, upholding a lamp pawn of law stiff as wand of welcome to all men in bona fide, and the corollas he so has saved gainst the virus he has thus injected, discoasted self to that Kipsy point of its Dublin bar there, breaking and entering from the outback's dead heart, Glastule born or born of Park Nola, by Watts's maid or Bianconi, Australians in Ireland, a well-known tall hat blown in between houses by a nightcap of that silk, or it might be a black velvet, and a Khyber gala dragging his hunker, were signalling gale warnings towards was wollen sie haben, to give them their bearings, east circular route or elegant central highway. Open, 'tis luck will have it, lifeboat alone, no man's woe, here cups empty bally. With winkles, whelks, and cockles and jilks, let be Buttercup Eve lit by night in the Phoenix, music, and all lots of fun at Finnegans ball, till Iron wakes from slumber deep, how they succeeded by courting daylight in saving darkness, he who loves will see. Business, his bestness, cokeman helping. Contraseen. He cupped his years to catch me's to you in what's yours as minus to hissant, geel as gale, guile as gall, order as own, now our menial servant, blanding rum, milk and toddy with I hand it you, saying whiches, see his bow on the halfpence, with a patted ear but did you hear, he scooped the hens, hounds, and horses, biddy by bunny, with an arc of his covet hand, saved from the dronings they might encounter, until his cubit long to hide in dry. Aside. You're soused in the topper, dodgers, prink me dregs. Zoot. And with the gust of a spring Alice, the fossickers and swagglers with him on the hoof from down under, piked forth desert roses in that Mulligar scrub. Re-enter Ash Junior, Payway top tip, Nankeen punt the lounges. Gives fair day. Cheroot. Cheerio. Off. Take off that white hat. Lo, Kersse come in back, bespoking of loungen of the boiled all stomper cheats, for Rush Irish is Irish, dangling his old Conan over his top-gallant shoulder. So was, low you show, he's like more look a novicer on the neve. Take off that wild hot, you scum of a botch, of Kersse, who, as he turned out, alas, when Ching Huanshang had been mocking his hullaballoon, a sample of the costume of the country. Tape off that so foul and so wrong, Welsher, you suck of a thick stalk in the other, and confiteor yourself, for because he had caught it up and misfuttered in the most multiplest manner, for that poor old Bridges mast-hard slouch a shook of cloaks as the wise, how he poorly hung zoo, his own fitter couldn't nose him. Course, with his coat so grey, and his pounds that he pawned from the burning. And, Hicon or Hurlin, what did you do at Doyle today, my horsey, doxy gentryman? Serge me, suit, says he, Kersse. And when Kersse had says this, Kersse stood them the whole course of training, how the whole blazy rays occurred, from lambkin's back to sliving board, and from spark to finish. And he tasked him tartly, and he sassed him smartly, tig for tagger, strop for stripe, as long as there's a yasher on his kiat. And they peered him beheld on the pyre. And it was so. Behold. Same capman know nothing horses, two fellow he fellow go where? Isn't that effect? Gig for gag? Asked their three newcomers till knocking shop, at the ones upon a topers, who, while in admittance to that impedance, as three as they were there, they had been maltreating themselves to their health's contempt. That's fag for fig, methinketh, confessed Mose for Mose, those who, would it not be for that dialectric, were upon the point of obsolescence, and at the brink of, from the pillory of the Nilsons, and from the statutes of the Congbullies, and from the millstones of Ovler Gromlius Libitate Nos Donio. And so culp me goose, he says, said the ham municipated at the first course, recoursing, all collars and cuffs, with his bow on the bummel, the buccaneering wonder duckin, he saysed, that his pumps may ship a while shandy mound at the dossard. The coarse hair hicey dicey man, there's nice tugs he looks. How you was, ship allows it, he saysed, the blood axe, bloodooth Bordzebek, that is cropping into our raw language navel through the lum small of his hawse hole, he saysed, done confounder him, voyaging after maidens, belly Jonah hunting the Polly Jones. And the hearse of all port noises befaddle him, he saysed, till I split in his flags, he saysed, 1 to 1, the landsleuter after Donnabrook fire. Reefer was a wenchman. One can smell off his wet smints how he is coming from a beach of Promisk. Where is that old muttoney, shall I ask? 3 kicks he will have from me, turncoats, in Bar Bartley, if I wars a few years ago. Meister Captain Gas Cooker, a sail strimmer. As he was sombling me ladder like pulp, and as I was trailing his fumbilums like hulp, he fell the fall of me foths, he says, like yelp. The gurra-gurrid gor-ballid pushkelson, he says, with his bellows pockets full of potatoes and his fox in his stomach, disagrees to his ramskew coddle lecher skither zirkovs, dropped down dead and duff, and there is never a Tailor man's in the fief of Iceland, or in the whole belonged of skunk and a borry from Dromedonderry till the remnants of McGrass, could milk a colt in thrushes for and furrow follower, with that a hole in his tail, and that hell of a hull of a hill of a camel a back. Fudgest. Upon this dry call of selenium cell, that horn of Long Halloon, Rylands in peril, with its doomed crack of the old Dam O'Connon power in sound in it, the lord of the saloon, as if for a flash, Salamagonda'd himself, listed his Tumulumsk pack, and hereinat presently returned him, ambilaterally all ionized from their upper-toned layer to his beforetime guests, that bunch of palers on their round, time-marching and patrolling, who, if they were abound to lose a laugh, Tony Lampy, you boo rascal, they were aboond to let it as the least they might do when they felt, oh, the wolf is on the walk, seize his sham-cram buck. Their joke was coming home to them, the steerage way for stabling, gusturally spooking, gen and gang, dane and dare, like the duds spuck of his first phototype. Troll did roll, how very unlikely, they filibustered, the fully-bellied, with the old sit in his shoulders, and the new satin atlas under his oxter, earning his breadth to the swelt of his proud, and picking up the emberose of the lizard lights, his tail toiled of spume and spawn, and the bulk of him, and hulk of him, as whenever it was he reddled a rood to riddle a reed from the sphinxish park, while Eid was a garden, ere love a side issue. They hailed him cheeringly, their ancient, their murrina, the walrus, the merman, ye seal that loves you lassers, Talassie or Tullafilma, when come of uniform age. Heave, coves, empty bloody. And ere he could catch or hook or line to suit their saucy skins, the lumpen pack, underbunt was over-rascalled. As, "Sot," said the tailors opposites from their gabalots, "change all that whole set. Shut down and shut up. Our set's alone." And they poured 'em behoiled on the fire, scald. Rowdy O's wad Halloween. Theirs is one lessonless message for good and true sirs. Will any person, bereaved to be passant, bring back or rumpart to the hoved polity mester, Clontarf, one love, one fear. Ellers, for the greater glossary of code, call on hum, Finucan lee, Finucan law. The welter focused. Wind from the north, warmer towards Muffin Bell, lull. As our reverend Collinfilla predicted in last month's Chattery sermon, the all-expected depression over Sciumdenebia, a bigger master of varying precipitation and heralded by fog signals, here Cockenhoven's extras, and unwalloped in an unusual suite of clouds, having filtered through the middle half of the same gorgeous kennel on its wage westwards, and incursioned a certain reach of low pleasure, mist in some parts, but with local drizzles, the outlook for to marry, streamstress mandig, beamed brighter, his ability good. What opens today? Giant crash in Aden. Bird flights confirm abroaching nuptials. Burial of Lieutenant Grosvenor Hatchet. R.I.D. Devine's Previdence. Lus de. Art thou gain a sense uncompetite, limited? Anna Livia portable, 1 and 11, united we stand, even many offered. Don't forget, I wish auspicable thieves' date for the Stork Derby. It will be 1,000 paddies, and soon to bet on drums of bliss, with hapsalap troth, hipsalute prudity, hopsalot honesty, hoopsaloop luck. After when, from midnights onwards, the four-poster hop quartetto. Kiskivico, Carlastus, Torstai, Tansia, Pergantai, Pelea, Lavantai, Yasunantai, Christianismus, Kyrialisus Christianismus. While as this fell over his finish, abroaching nuptials, burial of Lieutenant Grosvenor Hatchet, R.I.D. Devine's Previdence. Lus de. Art thou gain a sense uncompetite, limited? Anna Livia portable, 1 and 11, united we stand, even many offered. Don't forget, I wish auspicable thieves' date for the Stork Derby. It will be 1,000 paddies, and soon to bet on drums of bliss, with hapsalap troth, hipsalute prudity, hopsalot honesty, hoopsaloop luck. After when, from midnights onwards, the four-poster hop quartetto. Kiskivico, Carlastus, Torstai, Tansia, Pergantai, Pelea, Lavantai, Yasunantai, Christianismus, Kyrialisus Christianismus. While as this fell over his finish. Come hither a horse, thou mighty man of valour, elder man adaptive of Capel Isnod, and ze fong ze foon a lawn bricks number till I find you a falter-in-law to become your son to be, gentleman stealer, general man sea lord, goss and boss, hung guest and horsa, John Jemson's both in salesmanship, said the head marine's talebearer, then said the ship's godfather in the scat story to the husband's capture, and either you does or he must stand this moment same, said he. So let laid pacts be, being betwig ye, he said. By my main makeshift, he said, one fisk and one flesk, as flat as Eastman Admondson, your iron slides, and so humpty-dump, as Padley McNamara here, he's a hardy canuta. For the two breasts of Bombay are her soilers and her toilers, if thou wilt serve Idior, as thou hast sailed. Brothers both, brothers coats, ye have swollen blooders oaths. And Gophar said unto Glydion, and said he to the no-wedding captain, the rude honourable Humphrey, who was praying God of Clothildes by the 7 bosses of his trunk targe, he would save Bucklesome when she wooed belove on him. Come either, said he, my merry time merloop, you Wooten wall, said he, into the shipfolds of our quadruped island, bless Madju, Mardyke, Luscan Kong. Blas Nedos Bray, and no more of your maimed acts after this with your cautoros and criados to every tome thick and heavy, and our owniness of his revelance to your altitude. The ill-followable staying in wait for you with the winning word put into his mouth, or be the holy table, as Horrockstola hath most cares to call it. I'll rehearse your commanderments and first murder you entirely. As puck as that Thaddeus picked the pun and left the lollies off the foil. A Trinity judge will crux your boom, Pat is the man for thy. Aye, aye, and he poured him behind of the wishkus, mingling a sign of the krushk. I pope tithe thee ocean, said he, Oscar Vorta, said he, Eri Vikinger, said he, intra trifum triforium trifoliorum, said he, unconditionally for first of Gilgale Gauls, and hero chief explunderer of the clans of Celtic, said he, the streamerous mastress to the sea as cuddy coalmans, and let this douche for you as a holy of puzzlers, and for all the puckalines to the wakes of you, said he, out of the Helsinki of the Houtherners, and be damned to ye, said he, into our roomy O'Connellic relation, said he, from which hour this pledge is given, terra truly ternatrine, if not son towards thousand, like expect christen Athens, to which I Oscar your gods battering sailor, for as you got gold, whereafter a gooden diggin, and with gooder and skewer from Ossian Buck fared again ferios feuded hail so hame till Edar, in that the Lloyd mav hersey on your sail, and nomen an hour, speaking us and. Nonsense, you snorsted? He was hearted considerable against all religions overthrow, so wherefore the talkers pocker the big bog micklemanded store exploder, would he be wholesale sold, da-duped, by priest Godfroden, of the sacred haunt suit in Diablen Barclay at Dunkirk St. Petricksburg? But hear this, and here, herra, my rear admirable Pather Polson, said he, consistently, to the second-named suitor, my lately lamented sponsorship comes and round that wine, and lift your horn, said he, to show you're a scholar, for winter you likes or not, we brought your summer with us, and Tomkin about your Leif Eurekason, and his undiscovery of a miracle be the rolling forties, he said, and on my supper crappy dam, as Harris himself says, to let you in on some Christmian doctrine. Here is the ninthest pork of a man whisk swimmies in Diblin water, from Ball's Codden eastmost till Thurston's Lickslip, and, said he, whiles the heart of lucky Swain sloughed in his icebox, for to think of all the sorts of smucklers he would be have in his duty-frees, being forlooper to her, prayed his peal to our good St. Brandonius, Filius of Acara, spouse to Finlog. He has the nicest part of a little woman in the house, la chito la chato, la chama duiro, tina batala. Sif for your fob and a tesura a store for you, as Lucy lamp as when the surge sees sombren, that he dotes upon of any living pluscabel, to child and foster. That's the leap year's wonder of Totty Go, new school. 2-2 at Winwinny 1, tramity trimming and funnity fair, with a grit as hard as the Trent of the times, but a touch as saft as the Dee in flewing, and never a hydro Jenny, the like of her lightness at looking you leap. Read o' romancing, long Evmans in Verne, about little Annie Ronas, and all the Lavinias of Esther Ewers, and pleading for them to herself in the periglous latch hangs over her trickle bed. It's a piece of fortune, if it never falls from the stoffel. And when that malor is over till next time, and all the primroses are out dress parading, and the tubas toot for the glory of their god, making every dinny dingle after her down the Dargle Dell, and wait a while, bluster bus, you're marched and too forte, and don't start furling your laddens till you've learned the lie of her language. When it's somewhere calding, and she can hear the piano tuner beyond the beyonds in Cumbria, sleepy talking to the Wilch mountains, titting out through her dromer window for the flying of a touchman over the wishters of English strand, when Kilbarrack bell pings saxolaisance that conchesses with Sinbad's May, pong, where our Dollymon sees the phantom shape of Mr. Fortunatus Wright, since wingsome Miss Bulkley made low to her wrecker, and he took her to be a rover-o, and playing house of ivory dower of gold, and gift ye soil me peep at my prize, which it's a blue lagoon for her and a bleak-eyed Susan, if she can't work her miracles and give Norgy-Borgy good Irish timers, while her fresh racy turf is kindly kindling up the lover with the flue, with a rory-bory ellas would set an airy wedding on fire, let alone an old humpopotamus with a boomer porter on his brain, Aiden Bay, sigh and die, as booky viddy, 29 to her dozen, and cuckoo him de dulcy dovely to his old caw-caws, hugging and mooning for his strict private here, which there's no pure rube like an old pool ruber when your puller beer turns out Bruno Lewin and beat his barge into a battering pram with her wattling way for Cublin, and be me fairy face, said he, the marriage mixter, to Kersse, son of Joash, her coax fonder, wiry eyes and winky hair, Timpian a beat your Andros Meltons, and his love sang of the short and shifty. I will turn my thinks to things o' love, and I will speak but three's ones, said he, my truest patron's good founter. Poles aport and zones asunder, tie up in hates and repeat at luxure. You can better your two blue Protestant arson, Tailor Bach, after rounds abouts and donnocks and the volumes smoke, though the clonk in his stumble strikes warn, and where he laid out on that counter there like a Slavocrates amongst his skippies, when it comes to the ride honourable, said he, that's to make plain Nanny Nishirs a full Dina Marchesa, and all needed for the lay, from the Kersse on the Monte, with the room in her barge, down to fork-piece and buckle-catch, elding my elding and lift my lift, in the privacy of a perma-nocturne, hap, said he, at that meet hour of night, and hop, said he, and the first Anna's ever so tried, whiles the breath of Hoppy Hollespond swamped in his sea-chest, for to renumber all the Mally Medear's long roll and call of sweetheart emmers that ever had a port in from Coxenhagen till the Bruttles on the Nile, while Taillight is yet slipping under their pillow, ill omens on Kitty Cole if she's spilling laddie's measure, and before sing mattings in the fields, rings end bings Harry the Conqueror and Arrow, and the Reverend Fox Gutman gives us I'll Bell the Weld, or the Steeple Poise Revanger, and all Thing Valley knows, for it's never dawn in the dark, but the deed comes to life, and raptest bride is aptest breed, the lassie, the lassie. And to buoy the hoop within us springing, 'tis no timber tar she'll have then in her arms braced to dull the dally-dandle, our fiery queen, upon the night of the things of the night of the making to stand up, the double tet of the overseer of the seas, who cometh from the mighty deep, and on the night of making Horus to cry humph over his enemy, with the help of me cope, as so plews the riches of the road shields, with Eliza Belliza blessing the bed pane, at the will be done of Yinko Jinko Randy, come Basto Basco and Hippy Chip eggs, she will make a Suomese pair and singlet, jodhpur smalls and tailorless, a copener's cribful, leaf, bud and berry, the divlin's own little mimickin puss, hip, hip, Horatia, for my old comrade Saltimar here, brigantine general Sir A.I. Magnus, the flappernooser, master of the good life-bark Ulivan Green of Onslaught, and the homespun of her hearth. Fuss his father was the north-northeast, and Muss his mother was a glue-pot, and Gravy Dock or Groovy Anchor, and a Hullred Persunk Manohood, who, with a chen-chen for his delight-time and a bonsai napping through his doze, he is the bettest bluffy blonde blubber of an old widgeon that overspat a skettle in a skib. Caw caught, coo caged. And Dob did glow that night in Fingal of Victories. Canmother and Kathleen sang together, and the three shouters of glory, yelling, half viewed their harps. Surly Tool smiled upon Rear Dartula, and Roscranna's Bulgaboyo begirlified the daughter of Cormac. The soul of every else's body rolled into its old soul self. A double month's license, lease on mirth, while Hoony Moon and her flame went honeysuckling. Holy Rishia, what boom of bells! What battle of brags on Sandgate, where met the mobby mobbed his bibby mabbing through the rites. Even Tombs left Duss and Dunnage down in Demidoff's tomb, and drew on the door-nailed clogs that Morty Manning left him, and legged in by Ghost's Town gate, like Pompeii up to date, with a sprig of white boy's heather on his late Luke Elcock's heirloom. And some say they seen old Dummy Death, with a leaf of bronze on his cloak so grey, trooping his collar apace to the rear. And as awfully posh, with his half-crown jewel, as if he was the Grand Duke Meikle, or Pastor de Grace on the route de l'Épée. It was Jubilee Jeu, that all sorts jure. Free stouters and public cranks, hafts on glades. You could hear them swearing treaties on the Himalaya mountains, man, and giving it out to the old Fahawk and louth-mouthing after the Healy-Mealy with an emphasis to bring down the reign of Tara. Never to let her, ever to mind. The grandest be the Haley seen or heard on earth's conspectrum since Scape the goat, that gaffer, ate the Saunders Bible. Hadn't we heaven's lamps to hide us? Yet every lane had its lively spark, and every spark had its several spurtles, and each spitfire spurtle had some trick of her trade, a tease for Ned, nooks nestle for Fred, and a peep at me mow for Pierpol. So that Father Matt Hughes looked totally trebled, but Dano the Dane grimmed, doon. 'Twere jeg will elsker doughty land, meet the juice and him. To cannons roar and rifles peal, will chant I soloist sang. For there were no more tyrannies, and for lax embras was past the copper to our laders. And it was dim upon the floods only, and there was day on all the ground. Thus street spins legends, while woves tales, but some family feud felt a nick in their name. Old vicars sate down on their heirs and straightened the points of their lace. Red rollies popped out of their lairs and asked what was wrong with the race. Mick Namora used dripping in layers to shave all the furs off his face. The Berkeleys and Coyle Finns paid full fines for their sins when the Cap and Miss Cooley were roped. Rollo raped. With her bandbacks hoist from holder, zig for zag through pool and polder, cheap and laughing Jack, all orgas scorning, see the Bolshoi pictures motion, and Kitsy Klein's this mine, eloping for that home in Finn's Hotel Fjord, Nova Norning. Where they pulled down the cuddle and they made fray, and if thee don't look homey, well, that Duke can eye me. He go to birth, and she caught a manage, and Vols gorse mundum gan a wedst. Knock, knock. Wars where? Which war? The twins. Knock, knock. Woos without. Without what? An apple. Knock, knock. The Kildare mast, 1, 10, and 100, hare, foot, birdie hands, herring a bone, bees knees, and they Barney danced a Catherine round to know the who and to show the howsome. Why was you hiding, moder of moders? And where was Hunty, Papa the gun, pointing up to skyless heaven like the spoon out of Sergeant Major's tay? Which was the worst of them famix couplers? He's heard of hoarding, and her faith is altered. Becoming ongoing, their seeming sames, for though that Liam Stone deaf do his part, there's a wind tree-top whipples the damp off the morning. But tell us it all as if well as it's send, and the lunger it takes, the swooner they tumble to. He knows he's just thrilling, and she's sure she'd squeam. The three-legged man in the tulipy dewy dress. Chlud, hill mithy. We're brimming to hear. The durst he did, and the first she ever. Paganine bush, this isn't the polka. Catch as you can when Highland fling. And you, Tim Tommy Maloney, I'd tittle your parents if you stick that pig pin up into me. So in the names of the Walder, and of the Sol, and of the Holy Cross, Ogs aware it, trisex none, and by way of letting the ant out of her gross cropper, and leading the mokes home by their gribes, whoops about a plebiscide of plebiscides, alamam, elaman, poison curls, on this mountain of Delude, and in the high places of Delude of Israel, which is Hara Harim, and the Joblin's old mountain over against Vikings, from your Tans, Thwaites, and Thorpes, with tofts and fosses, fells, house and shaws, luns, goths, and dales, menturing the magnominous, as so will is the litliest, the mirio hast with toroidal coil, area round wanton a jockey, fin above wave after ducky down divvy, trader arm a slung beauty belt, the former Velican and Nana Carlikivna, Sommer lad and Cinderenda, Valtivar and Viv, how big Bill Brine Borumota first took his gauge at Lil Lolly Lavender Water, since when capriole legs covets limbs of a crane, and was it the twilight, or the mount of the Yar, or the faint of her smell, made the seamen assault of her, in imagicine all, whim, 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 to the latification of this generation by new humorization of our Christianization. As the last lyre in the earth be gaily wailed, the first lady of the forest, though toots pardoozle sauve l'amour. For the joy of the dew on the flower of the fleets, on the fields of the foam, of the waves of the seas, of the wild main from Bornholm, has just come to crown. Snip, snap, snoody, no historian goody, of a little trip-trap and a big tree schooner, for he put off the kettle and they made 3 for fie, and if Heck don't love A.L.P, then lad, you annoy me. For Hannigan with Hannigan still haunt to hunt to find their Hinnigan, where pa Pierce and O'Reilly na Tullymongan mac whackfell the Dublin on the Dublin daddy doodled, and unruly person creak to jest. Gestapos to parry off cheekers or frankfurters on the Oder. Fine again, Coulson. Peace, O Wiley. Such was the act of Goth stepping the talk of Doolin, brain and plantage, wattle and daub, with you'll peel as I'll pale, and we'll pull the both to ground to gutter. Testes touchwood and shen stone unto pop and puma, calf and condor, under all the auspices incorporated, the chal and his chi, their roamerin over, grib grob grab raining trippity trappity, so far shalt thou flow, else thy cavern hair, to whom she, and it liken and please thee. Till sea lump became dumped, a bump slump a little bed. Alto la alamash, okay. Camper damper to jetty to wharf, all the weight of that mons on his little rib eunuch. Him, that grand old man, to be that hard of hearing, aforesaid, and her the petty tonder with the fix in her changeable eye, which see, Lord, me lad, he goes with blowbeard, leady, plashes stream. But before that his lordship was converted to a land shop, there was a little theagamajig incident, that hoppy-go-jumpy January morn, when he colluded with the cad out on the beg, amidst the funereal gams of those oath-massed Fenians, for whom he's first caused the bridge of the piers at Inverleffy, mating puntine of their engagement, sin-buildizing graters and things. Eke, isn't? Oh, Nilly, not all. Here's the first cataraction. As if ever she cared an aswan damn about her harpoon sticking all out of him, wet between Phoenix's calipers and that sour Donome sheath. Stratchi, gospodin. Kenny thought ye didn't oozle. While the sit was leaking asphalt like a suburbi Aurealis in his roar was stucking to him like old boots. Interruption. Czech or Slovak. Diversion. Why, wonder of wenchelos, what o sesame open, vidur est doing, vidur est being. But how thingajerry means but this being becoming in zidur? Ke? And oh, it is nay not him what foots like a glove, shoe, handshine, or padonkin. Softly, Anni Slevi, susci is slojaneska. The aged, crafty, mummy-feed confusionary, over-insured, ever-lapsing, accentuated Kate Catterson clopped Darcy Dobry back and along the dancing corridor as she was going to pim him, way boy Wally, not without her complement of Cavarnan men, between the two death-dealing allied divisions and the lines of ready-present fire of the Corktagens upstored, taken in giving the salute, band your hands going in, bind your heads coming out, and remarked to herself in her serfs alone, a weirpovy, willowy, dreavy drawly, and the patter of so familiars far abroads and Bohemians, as she sure snows, boof for a booby, boo, new uses in their musy fume, the Jamisons is a cook in his hair, and the Ginnises is a rape in his hind, and the bulling dung caught the wind up, tip. And the message she brought below from the missus she bragged above that had her agony stays outside her sari chemise, blanking her shifts for to keep up the fashion since the king of old runnings kissed her beeswixt hand. Fang, pierce me hunky, I'm full of me unders. Her fees like a tub tail of mundane clothes, fed to the chaps with working medicals, and her birthright pang that would split an atom like the 40 pins in her hood, was to father Hunter a howdy-dowdy to mountainy mots in her amnest plain language, from his fane a one, his hottentot lass, to pierce his rope-loop ear how Podushka be prehazed. Now the sounds of his loins were a winking and waking, and his daughter of the hush lillabilla lullaby, lead us not into reformication with the poors in your kingdom of Gory, O Moan. Once after males, nonce at a time, with them Murphy's puffs, she dursted with nutmegs and the brambery cake for dour dorty dumpling ober matum beatum and eps up the fat. And if he was wishful to lecture her caudle with chesty chat from his Dorburg den, and novenny news from Knoll, or Toplots talks from Morion Baths, or a parrot spraits cure for uncivilized lethargies, Spix my spoon, and the very blessed spoon, 'twas her hour for the chambers in Salicopodium, with love to Mellus Pani Costello, from XYZ, for to folly Billy Bobbis gibbets Portsy Punsy, and she was a wanton for Demerara to take her genial glow to bed. This is time for my trouble, reflected Mr. Gladstone Brown in the toll hut. It was characteristic from that man of Delgany. Dip. This is me vulcanite smoking, profused Mr. Bonaparte Nolan under the nate cup. One feels how one may hereby reignites the ground old Mahonagian. Dip. And this is defender of defeater of defaulter of deformer of the funst man in Danelaw, willing toned in with this glance down his brown, and that born appalled noodlum, the panelite pairs cummel delimitator, odding Oliver White, he's as stiff as she's tight, and this'n's his speak quite hoarse. Dip. In reverence to her midgetsy, the lady of the Camalus, as magis to our own one's goff stature, prosim, prosit, to the crook. Oh, rum, it is the comicalest thing, how it pickles up the punchy and the Jude. If you'll gimme your thing to me, I will gamey a sing to thee. Stay where you're dummy, to get her to go there. He banged the scoop, and she bagged the sugar, while the whole pub's pobbled on a stair. On the mitzertint wall, with its chromo for all crim-crims, showing whole minags asses sat by almanac's men, cannons to ride with them, cannons that leapt at them, woollied and flundered. So the Katies came and the Katies came, as so gang sludge-nose, and that hench wench what hopped it donneth there doffed the doers. Silence. Yes, we've cont on print, and its gloss so gay, how it came from Findlater's Yule to the day, and its hey talach toe on the King's highway, with his hounds on the home at a turning, to Donicombe faring, Milliken's pass. When visiting at Isla Chapelle, taste the leap of the waters from Carloman's cup. It tellyhows its story to their 6 of hearts, a 12-eyed man, for whom has majesty, who since his died drown, reign before the Isba. Ow, 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 ha, heyish! As stage to set by ritual rote for the grim tale of the 4 of Hyacinths, the deaf-eared carp, and the bugler's dozen of leagues in Amour, or how Hollis Pollis went to Parkland with Mabby and Sammy and Sonny and Sissy, and Mop's valet de shambles, and all to find the right place for it by peep-a-skirt or pipe-a-skirl, when the hunt called a halt on the chivy chase of the ground sloper, at that lightning lovemaker's tender appeal, till, between wandering weather and stable wind, wasteland, hostile end, night seal and old trigger, some bully clubber burgally shot the Russian general. Let us propel us for the fray of the fray, us be ready. Con utirenish how ruleish, ah la la, con utirenish how rurulalaish, ah la la la. The Wellington storm is breaking, the sound of mouring. The Wellington storm waxes furcilier, the whack-a-whacks of the storm, katu to ishis, katu to wana. The strength of the Rothorn Generand is known throughout the world. Let us say, if we may, what a weeny wookaleen can do. Ow, 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 ha, hey, sha-la-la. Poor the Ruski, went they all of them then, each in his different way of saying, calling on the one and the same time Hibernian Knight's undertainer that was having half for the laugh of the blissed St. Barbara's, another dose and once tale of a Tublin, wished unto him with its olives a columns and its hill's own ravings, and Tutty his tour in his no-hair's yacht. It was before, when Aimé stood for Arthurduke, for the figure in profane, and fell from grace so madly, for Phil the flatter fellows, they were saying. And it was the lang in the shirt and the green of the wood, where obelisk rises when odalisks fall, Major Thrift on the make, and Jolly Jack Spinthrift on the merry. Oh, Mr. Maturin, they were calling, what a top-heavy hat you're in. And there, army made, then they were saying, these so pew-pews. And it was cyclums cyclorums after he made design on the course. and he want to mess on him. Enter elbow, add all taller danis. Back, seater and sides, and he applied, I'm amazingly sorry, sir. The whole bold-shouldered boy's width for fullness, measures for messieurs, messes mast. They were say calling again and agone, and all over again, the louthly meters, the loudly meters, the lousely measlers, 6-1 bar ones. And they pled him be heightened the firing. Dope. Mal to meet him, all to make him. When a tale tarry shom shanter shavan, for all they wall to pray. Of this Mr. Attilalarik and these washwomen, dapple-hued, frony-floored, and feofieds, who had ensue, keen and able, and a spindle song aside, nothing more is told until now, his awe-broom hour, her seer Sahara of sad Oakleys. And then, behold, the next thing is, we are once more as babes, a-wandering in a wold made fresh, where with the hen in the story aboot we start from scratch. So the truce, the old truce, and nat and buff the truce, boys. Drouth is stronger than faction. Slant, shin shin, shin shin. It was of the Grant, old Gartner, qua golden medalist, Publius Manlius, funeral private, his place is his post, sure they said, and we're going to market sore, they said, with a carbon caustic manner, bequoth of the liberal oider at his petty corporalezzo, that hung caught napping from his bated breath. It was of him, my wife and I thinks, to feel to every of the younging fruits, tender rose like an Atalantic's breast swells, or, on a second wreathing, a bright taut bite shimmery shaking for the wealth of his plough. And where the peccadillies at his wrist's ends meetings be loving so lightly doth soil the candidacy, me wiping eye sinks, of his soft-boiled bosom, should be apparent, even to our electorate, of nullatinentes. All to which not a lot snapped the Nolan of the calabashes at his whilom you heart photognomist, who by this sum taken was as much incensed by St. Bruno as that what he had consumed was his own panegyric. And what a lot about it, if it was only a pip-a-puff pigeon-shoot, that Grace's old get-runner, the man of centuries, was bowled out by judge, jury, and umpire at Batman's biff like a witch-befooled legate. Dupe. His almanence being laterally in dispensation with his 3 older patrons' aid, Providence's divine cow to milk-feeding milkman, bona facies to sola fides, what matter what all his Freud say, or who holds his hat to harm him. Let Hutch just keep on under it being a vanished consonant, and let Anna Livibel prettily prattle a lewd all her own, and be that semiliminal salmon solomonly angled in-gate and out-gate. A truce to love calls, dulled in war clothes, mealy bags, things and bleakhosen. Leave the letter that never begins, to go find the latter that ever comes to end, written in smoke and blurred by mist, and signed of solitude, sealed at night. Simply, as says the mug in the middle, ne Brian ne Noel, ne Billy ne Boney. Imagine twee queemy wosen. Suppose you get a beautiful thought and call them Sylvia's subsilence. Then imagine a stutterer. Supporter him to being one bigger master omnibus. Then lustily, two to the font, and trit on the boxwoods like gay fetuses dance. Imagine up to 3 longly lurking lobstarts. Fair instance the Will Wolseley Wellesleyers. Petter, pink him, play pranks with them. She will not damn properly smile. He may seem to appreciate it. They are as pyractical jukers men sure to pal tipsy pot. Feel the wallies drippling out of your finger thumbs. Says to yourselves, flowers have ears, he hear. So lowly. So these is Budlim. How do dainty darling? So peach to pick on you in this way, prue and simple, prit and spry. Hey day to Malster Finnegans, and hopes your highty-tighty licks the manky nuts. And oodlum, hoodlum, doodlum to yes, Don Teague and her leg, who the bullocks brought you here, and how the hillocks are ye? We want Bud, We want Bud Budderly. We want Bud Budderly. There he is, in his Barcelona, the man that shunned the rocks on Jerroland, the man that won the Battle of the Ball. Order. And tough, we call on Tancred Artaxerxes Flavin to compere with Barnabas Ulick Dunn. Order. Milster in the chair, we've heard it since sung 1,000 times, how Berkeley shock the Rakush and Germanan. For Aaron boys go brawl. A public plouse. Citizen soldiers. Taff, a smart boy of the Pete Freers, 3211, looking through the roof towards a revolution of the Karma life order previous to his hoisting of an emergency umbrolum in byway of paraguastical solution to the riddle in his head. All was flashing and crashing, blurty Moriarty blutcherud. What see, Butty Walsh? Tell ever so often. But mottle-edged youth, clerical appellants, who, as his pied friar, is supposing to motto the sorry digester and tiff-taff toffiness, or to be degarsed forever and a day in his accounts. But dadam will shunny, till even so often. See vast pool. Taff, promptly helping himself out by the cesspool with a yellop Europe, puts up his furry furzed hair. Bitly, hum to our mountings, conscribe him till us, cont, in his jubilant tubulance, the ground sapper, with his soil day sight out on his mould day side in, the Gouverneer General in lout leaf tenant of Baltiskeamore, a malthouse for Leperty Hall, and use paramilitary language, the sailors of the Yellavs knocked on Palignol Urdlesh, Sheltas and Weltas and Teltas agam, sling Stranaslang, how Maloratia spikes her, coining a speak a spake, not the satanic stuff that slimes soft Cyranush, the good old gun-shop mono-words for mano-simples, tinkers tan it. They did okay do for Changlimeng when that man Deran was big-top Tom-saw, tip-side bombas pageant filler. Ejaculate, all lee light, rassemble the glorings of Bryant the Breath, when the mollies make halfpence, took his leg for his thumb. And may he be too an intrepidation of our dreams, which we forgot at Viking, when the morn hath raised out Limpalove, and the bleak frost chilled our reverie. Poop, sing Chinglumang, up go Bobby Cup, let's hear in remember the braes of old. But, drawling forth from his blousum, where is meditabound of his mincastery, switches on his gorse coppers, fling whito langton, fed up the grain oils of Erin, while his laugh neighs bank as that flash o' mine's rays, and his lip on his long wedge wambles. Allah blow, say your nara pokol san. Man head very dirty by Ammanoyato, like old Dardy Icon when he cooked up his eggs in bacon. He got a vat, and me got a fit, and all Gok's Chelavan got a fudden. Poor old Pichobe, melodistius of Metchenacht, belabert that pinch mayasso. Bog Kersse damn neat, sar gamkant. Limbers a front of him, lumbers behind. While the bucks bite his doss, his heart bites the ross, till the bounds of his bays bell the warning. So beta, so barker, he was enmy-valped, chromian fashion, with all his cannibal weapons, in his raglan rock, and his malacoifed bulbs big, and his varnished Russians, and his cardigan's blouse jagged, and his scarlet mancho cuffs, and his tree-coloured cami flag, and his perico-pendulous gale storms. Here weeks higher pulches. O'Brienius berumst, from cars and polycops, the men's confessioners. Several shimmers pleasant time pains, Musumazel's buckwoods look, tenter and liking. Taff, all Persia's tertias shook at na rat-a-tata at his wagon horches. His bulged, glaring stargapers razzled dazzlingly full of eyes, full of balls, full of holes, full of buttons, full of stains, full of medals, full of blick-black blobs. Groats Arctic, toad-labens, some garment guy, insects appalling, low hum-clangs in. A cheap decoy, too deep destroy, say man graphique, mais ce n'est pour daguerre. But if that he hids forgotten his native glossary far used ameet the floors of the forest, his spent fish's livid smile giving all asundry the bumpit of the dope. Come all you dupes of Wymington that graze the calves of man, a bear reigning in his heaven-spawn consummation robes. Rent, outraged, you leaved, grained, ballooned, hindergored, and volunt. Erminia's cape-cloaked hoodooed man. First he steps, then he stooped, looked. Taff. Struck strangling like a leal lusky lubliner to me rumber by the cycle of the crews who strungled at a hilupa with what empoisoned El Monte de Zuma, and failing wilne nilne that he was palaps barn in the mixed of the Crumlin, before he was pop-soused into the monks of the Vatican, makes the holy polygon of the empt on the grease shaper, a little farther, a little soon, a letter, etc., o credobre. Scutterer of gold, he is riturious on every rodery, the Ljudski so soon of a fitchet, with his Walsh brush-up and his bony bogey brags. But, after his tongues in his cheeks, with pink poker pointing out in routine to impassable abjects, beyond the mist towards listener Louis, such as the Jublian Alps and the Hoof Ribeiro, as where he and his true lock may ever make a game. The field of Carhags and that bloasted tree, forget not the feld, for the lomondations of Augrem. Warful doons botham. Here, Furry Glen, nye, their fiery paths, tack, with guerrilla man a spear a spore to prink the pranks of primkisses, and the buddies behind in the byre, a la blah. Taff, a blackseer, he stroves to recollect all the straggles for wife in the rut of the past, through the widows in effigies keening after the blank sheets in their family, to the relics of old decency from overdraft. O day of wrath, murther of minds, Selomoy, Zulului, Bernison MacMahon from Osro, bearing nose Easker for sweet proletas on his swoof prow. But, back to his petrol and pump, Sweegees we rest, no more Athelhooley, Dode Wod Duke. Bruin Aboroff, the Hooney Munger, and the grisliest man Michael in Maid of Ed, whose annal lives the highest, for he devoused the Lelias on the find, and he comforted Sam Tramp and Marchant out of the drumbune of an art. Guard, serve Finland, serve we all. Taff, what with the sycophannies at the front, and wet what the soccerfumbers behold in the fair, ill certain, between his bulkritudes and the Rosh Hashanah, where he sees Bishop Ribboncake plus his Pollux prized going forth on his visitations of mirage, or Miss Horizon, just so all our fantasies daintied her, on the curve of the camber, unsheathing a show-laced limaloft to the great consternations. Divulge, hidey-die kittles and howdy-do pan, push, bart and pull beauties. See that we stole, or let Dargman be Luna as straight away as your aunt's folly me line, while ye post is going from piping Pubworth to haunted Hilborough on his Moojiskit Zaravants. The rist, the rust, the sir of all russers, as my first is near to hear, and my second is meat to set on, while my holes appears Orioles. We should say you dons the polecat. Bang on the bush, gurg in the gorge, rap on the roof, and your flop is on But, at the signal of his act, which seems to sharpnel his Inamal's melody, playing the spool of the little brown jog round the wheel of her wang goes the milliner. Buckily, blood-stained boyne, bim-bam-bum-bum. His snapper was shot in the Rumjar General. Why the gills he lobbed behind him. Taff obliges with a two-stop yoga-koga thumpety on the bones for Ivory Girl and Ebony Boy. The Balaclivka, Trovatovich, I tremble. But, with the sickle of a scythe, but the humour of a humero, Howardis through his choler of gold, fumfing to a full frength, with this wallowing olfact. Mortar, matter, tartar water. May his bulls grow wider so his skittles gets worse. The aged monad making a venture out of the murder of investment. I seen him acting sergeant what betwixt the scimitar star and the ashen moon. By their lights shall thou throw him. piff-paff for puff-puff, and my pipe for his cigar. The mlacky way for gambling. Up to this Kirkscrawbind, an admirable verbivoco-visual presentment of the world-renounced Carholm event has been being given by the Irish race and world. The huddled and enlivened stable crashers have shared fleet-footed enthusiasm with the paddocks dare and ditches tear while the muse was combing ground. Hippo hoppere helioscope flashed Windsor places as the gates might see. Meus Deus, that was, with burning briar Mr. Tumas no Hoholan for their common contrived satisfaction in the purports of amusement, telling the verily reverend Father Epiphanes, shrine shriver of St. Doros, in Brown Bonner, how, as surely as there's a bonum in your osteology, back legs shirked the racing Kennelda. The saintly scholarists roastering Goffalord of Newper Satural's holler at this metanoic excomulagosis tells of the chestnuts, once again witting Tom, absolutionally rumpty-humpty successfulness. A lot of lassies and lads without damas or dads, but fresh and blued with collecting boxes. One ought spare one's triflets, to be shot. It is coppingers for the children. Slippery Sam, hard by them, physically present, howsomedever morally absent, was slooching about in his knavish diamonds, asking Max and Oxen and Muggies, a pinnace for your taut turfas, to deck the ace of duds. Tom-tempered Tim, howbeit, his unremitting retainer, the seers are the seers of Samael, but the hears are the hears of Timoth, is in boozer's gloom, sulken steady in his sulken tents. Bald all the curse, bale dale the day. And the frocks of chic sheeples in their shummering ensembles. You see, a chief smith, Sempero's scandal stink maker, a midinist from the Casabianca, and, of course, Mr. Fry. Barras! Pardon the Inquisition causas es quostas. It is Davalorem's Dominical Breyers. Why coif that weird hood? Because among nosoever circumstances is to be apprehended the distinguished patronage of the lost Gabonor Jaggernaut. Pam Jab! Gross jump it on. What was thud? Look. It is the 1,000-to-1 Guinea Gooseberry's lipperful slipper cup. Hold hard, ride siddle tight little Pitsy Riley. Gurra grunch. There at the turn of the fourth of the hurdles. By the Ross of Christos, hollow full populace is a shout of exclamation. Bum chub! Emancipator, the Cream Hunter, Major Herman C. Entwistle, with dramatic effect reproducing the form of famous sires on the scene of the former's triumphs, is showing the Eagle's Way to Mr. Waithate's 3 by Geldings, Homo Made Inc., Bailey Beacon, and Ratatouille, while first and the second and the other girl, Mrs. Bosswater's Levy Brink, 2 early spring dabbles, are showing a clean pair of heads to Emancipator. Think-a-thinks to oppen here. To this virgin's tuft on this golden of Eden. I never thought of think-a-think. Our lock-maker, he is profoundly annoyed. He is shinkly-thinkly shaking in his shades. That will be off for today. This yeary dream has been offered you by Bet and Tip. Tip and Bet are swapstick quack chances in from top hole to bottom of the Irish race and world. Taff, awary that the first sports report of London Reginald has now been after thoughtfully corroborated by a sagging spurts flash, takes the dipper end direction, and for tasting a timmer of malaise after the poignancy of Orangetonia, orients by way of Sagittarius towards Draco on the Lower. And you collier cast on him the courser, with Boyle, Burke and Campbell, I'd go gamble on Strangbone's tomb. You had just been cerebrating a camp to St. Sepulchre's march through the Armemons retreat, with the boys all marshalled, scattering giant's hail over the Kersse way, fellowed along the route by the stenchions of the corpse. Tell the cold spells terop, if you please, Cammy lad. Perferis Albionias. Think some in gain think, as T. Cortera sate over the Norwegian captain, for when Orrups and asses were chulrings and micramacrees. A forward movement, Miles Nabogaline, and dispatch. But, slinking his coat sleeves, surred out over his squad mutton shoulder, so as to loop more like the jauntly man, as he sensed the aggregate yup behind their whole scoop china's desperate noise totalage, and explaining a posteriorly how Osterlo was Val de Sambre below's hero, and he was in a great estate 4 anarixtion on the susceptible side of him made spoil a priori his proportion. Yes, certainly so. I don't think I did not, Podger. Never you brother me, for I scouted, think you. Ichts, nichts an nichts. Greatest schupta. Me falder all audi in the spurt of a script. Of all the queer asses and all the queer men in the tragados of those anti-ants, they're grand over that sound of a gunning with his saboth suppolets, smoking his scandal loose at both ends of him. Fine doing. I grand thinked after his obras after another time about the itch and his eggen doom. He was legging boldy lug from some pulver sporrocks and yoking for a stool easy for to nemesis plot Shalafranca and for to salubrate himself with an ultra-dong's heavenly mass at his base by a supreme pompship Corans the perished popes, the Reverend and Oliverd Cromlex. And when I heard his dude brogue reciting his cheap cheatery gospeds to sintry and sentry and sentry and suntry, I thought he was only after having after his broke forth, but be the homely Curopodvas, I no sooner seen a gist of his frighteousness than I was bivering with veer a few versets off, fooling for fjord for my 5th foot. Of manifest disobedience and the flute. Taff. Though the ungluck sarson is gimming for to get him, jotning in holy lidges, half a god lap, like a soldier is sap, with a peak at his cue and a tear in his eye, and a bond of his back and a croak in his cry, as did jolly well harm lean o'er him. Is not a thug who would weep on their song of Saruman, which goat eye and sheep skeer they damnty well know. Papaist, gamban man, take the corred's blow. Ya, your partridge's laughed. But, giving his shimionized twinge in act knuckle-downagement of this cumula kick, straight from the fire trench, suddenly drops lead. Sat on his heels, ouchie. He changed corps and uniforms as he is lefting the gat out of the pig. His face glows green, his hair greys white, his blyes become brune, to sweet his cultic toilette. But when I seeing him and his one ship fetch along within hail that terrible tall with his nichny kopfganob and attempting like a brandy-logged Rudman Catherjick, lugging up and lading down his live pelt so crushingly like Mebucket Mesa and espousing his old skinful self tail-totom by manoeuvring an open ordure to renew murature with the cow-rows in their Irish pleasantry, I thanked he was recovering breadth from some herd squatters beyond the carcasses, and I couldn't erve a nerver to tell a yard story, not if I knew the prize, if from lead or alimony. But when I got in occupation of a full new of his old base middleism, in action, panya, by the blear-eyed lights of the storm-trooping clouds, and in the sheen flare of the battle-axes of the heroine, and mid the shield fails a wail of the bitter accents of the seraphim, and caught the fierce smell of his orals, or rank a stank, a suphead set-wrapped, like Peter the Graced, alti-palta, my billet forsook's allegiance, got bullet, and no lie is this, I was babbying and yet again bobbering, bibble boy, me marrows, me skewers, me nas, me feet, tub, beat it, so long a pattern. Clumsy, if ever misused, must use now. But mea culp, aram averterum, as I love our dear Derushi, I confesses with old pride jealous, when I looked upon the sour of all the Harusians, with the weight of his arge fulling upon him, from the travailings of his stomach, and Rukan asked the fates of a bosser. There was fear on me, the sons of Noah for him, and it was heavy he was for me. Then the way I mingled my Ermenial Hermerians amongled his gospel is formilius, till Achora Mocrius I hadn't the arts to. Taff, as a matter of fact, prepensing how such worldmans from Burnia's seduced country clowns, he is preposing barangaparang after going, knowing what he is doing after to see him pluggy well moidered as a murder effect. You bet your blowy knife before he does so's surprised though he is. Grot zot, you hidden the hurts? What fun! But Hearing some brothers suddenly give 2 or 3 peevish sniff-snuff snores like Govely's false sleep, he wait a wished to see might he stirs, and then goes on, curl-rum-like, without asking for papice or anything a soul. Merts marred, I met with whom it was too late. My fate, oh hate, farewell. Fear wheeling of the groan, and think of that when you smugs to bag it. Taff, who meanwhile home at yarn's length, so as to put a nodgy in the posture, by while of stock in his hand, and of rumour making, by getting umptiums gathered off the scattered, had been lavishing, logging on lighthouse, words of silent power, su-su glu-glu biri-biri gongos, upon the repeated speech salvers in keeping right, which, thanks give me, and naperid norms non-obstaclant, there can be little doubt, have resulted in a month chance ministering of another goodness, my good to see. Bum promifazio, shumpum for pallidi, and uco suso for nipperdandy. Drink off this scup, and be bloody o raffertied. To bugger? But he wiped off his chimbly fot, as lips love curling to the tongue opener. He take up the communion of sense at the hands of the forgiver of trespassers, and therein after centelinates that pontifex mix him host with heroical hospitality, proffering into his pauses somewhat salt bacon. There scarce not in this gnarled world a fully so spend as dilates for the improvement of our forces of nature by your very ample solvent of referacting upon me like his bosom fiend. The other forgotten doubles in the Mullingar are during this swishing sight Tailor. How the fictionable world in Prussian cream tartary is loading off heavy verses and affabling themselves with muckinstushes. The Nichni Novgolosh, how the spinach ruddocks are being tattoo-vatted up for the second comings of Anti-Greenst. Ebenyeros for a Romal peace, how Ali Bey Ibrahim wisheth Bella Suora to a holy cryptmas, while the Arumbian knives riders executes devilances round the Jehumis Fiur. Learn the Nunstuck, how old Yale's boys is making revolutions for the cunning new years, never elding, still beginning, never to mate to lend, never to aid celeries, and never to add solaries, and never to add solaries, and never to aid silleries with such a off, as Berkeley shows a ruction getter off. Phone for finial to mellow after morn, and your fumerals a rose election. Taff, now as he has been past the buckthorn stock from Pather Piper of Colligachuna, whiles they all are building pots to Dublin din, for old Dadam Dumstum to tomb, and Womhums lums agam, glimpse agam, glance again, rise up road and hive up hill, and find your polyvooly fancy pitching ingles in the parlour. Since you are on for versing rhetorish, say your piece. How Bucclew shocked the rosing Gernerill, a ballet of ghastly power, a hov and a zov and off like a gow. And don't live out the sad of tears, pity a wick. Not off got half sang as you, but back. As yet their death not endeth, hey? Verse good, buckle to, say yesic, Ballygarry. The 40 succulums are what you may carring to cool the scoop goods blue. Hark a body, fain. Thing man place your howd, whilst someone shimweir tinkle-dinkle deld. Shin fine deed in the myrtle of the bog, tway fain men stod up to slog, free bond men lay lurking on. Twan about whatting him, for a sneeze storm drappin'. 'Twill be of nice change, arra, sir. Can you come it, bud? But who in the cushlows of his good forseeking horse, ever fondlinger of his pimple spurk, is a nihilist of the 9th home stages, the baby bell in his bagged strapped upper going off all at once, begad, lest he should challenge himself by God till anguish. Her sure top has said as would, it was corporal failings first. It was of another time, a white horse day where the midrill met the barge. Sbogum, rough now along about the first equinox in the colander, on the plain of Corazon, as thou goest from the Mount of Beckel, steep Nimorn, 1132 years how the crow flees, end indeed, after a power of skimmisks, bloody dens and gaudy knots of them, when we sight the beasts, Hig, what of Ramy wetter. Most mindful date man ever held dimsy death with, and high was in the Riley Irish Kersse militia asunder Sir Arthur Woolwich leagues, good Tomty's years some while in Crymelian wall, same where in Ireland, during me weeping still stums over the fresh prosts of Eastchept, and the dangling garters of Marrowbone, and daring my whopping still stunts in Bastion Moss, old style and new style, and heave A.L.P onwards. And win again, blagged Argoose, or lose the day, plays Goat, the banshee peeler, if Muscats knows what's whiz. The great day and the druidful day comes San Patrisky, and the grand day, the excellent, fine, splendorous, long, agreeable, toast-worthy, cylindrical day, goes 6th of the 9th. The heptahundred annum damius that Hadgis Fidgis tells me is and will and was be, till the time lag is in it that's told in the Book of Alum to column kill all the prefaces of Eringonbrook. But I continue, and in commixtion. We was loathsome like, till we took out after the dead beats. So I begin to study, and I soon show them days reasons how to give the cold shake to they blighty perishers, and lay one over the beats. All fella he look he call, all fella come long a villa finish. Tumbalo, how was I a clap of that? From them banjo peddlers on the raid, getting up me anti-vanillas and getting off the stisses me aunties, boxerizing and coxeroosing, and swiping a Johnny Dan's sweep for to exercise myself, neverwithstanding the top cats and his roaming cartridges, rushing and patroning out all over Crom William Wall. With a why it was me who, ha. Taff, all for letting his tinder and lighting be put to be hice in the fire, and while Durblinly obeisant to the Felicias of the skivvies, still smoking his pulverate turkish in the rooking presence of Ladios. Yahoo, how called? Whom battles joined, no bottles sever. Weren't you aide-de-camp? But in his difficulties tres dobrimiant, he feels a bit for like a battle falleth stout, but falls a bat for like a borleful of bear. And me awful omegrims, between me associations in the post-leadenly past, and me disconnections with our plumpervious futules, I've a boodle full of memories in me bosom, and me dears run slow as blimey, as I now with platonic leave recoiling, how the thickens they come back to one trust. Me missionary post for all them old boyars that's now boomeranging in Wall Holler, me alma maters. I drink to them, bicorn spirits fusillading, and you, Colley's adjutant, even where it's content's woody, with absence vermouth. Jungle men in agreement, I give thee, our greatly sworn, the occupant that ruin dreadful, the throne fulvna, and all our royal devouts with the arrest of the whole inhabitants of Noy Islands. One brief mouth, and veligo lap now, me old attaches, the Kurgans, if they could get a kick at this time for all that happens to us. Cedric said Gormlison, and Dano O'Donoghue, and Conno O'Conachar, it is this were their names, for we were all under that manor barrackses on Congor's Wood together, Turkman 3, with those khaki rainettes, our miladies in their toileries, the twum-plum yumnitzes, vieras vienaskayas of old Yadya Unken, who was a great mark for jinking and junking up the palposes of warmth and warmth we wore, and the charm of their lease brocade. For Lisbia's hath a burm in eye, but when it bames fire nor on screeneth. Hulp, huzzas, raise, rast, trirosy, 3 times 3, up Lancesters, anathema. Taft, who still senses that heaven-sent heroines that entertained him, who they were sinuo rivals from the sunny Espionia, but plied wopsy with his wallets in Tatak of Bustle Bakerloo, 1132, passing the uninational truth-bosh in smoothing irony over the multinatural infructuosities of his grinnerset. The rib, the queen of old birds, Sinya Sonyaviches, your rhoda cockards that are ready to embrace our ruddy inflammatory world in their oho Sililvian biribab way, till they've kinks in their tringers and boils on their taws. Poor door the pain lie, Mayor Pencho. Is Dramhead Count Marshal or Goneril stab? Mind your pews and chaos if you pigots marsh. Do the not, dingbot, be a dag, for Zahur and Zimmerminne. Sing in the chorus to the ether. In the heliotropical north time, following a fade of transformed tuff, and pending its vice version, a metanergic re-glow of beaming bat, the bare-board bombardment screen, if tastefully torched geranium satin, tends to teleframe and step up to the charge of a light barricade. Down the photo slope in syncopank pulses, with the bits bug-twug their tess, the missile drops glitter a glatter a glut, borne by their carnea wild. Spray-gun rakes and splits them from a double focus. Grenadite, damnamite, electronite, nickelite, and the scanning fire spot of the scanners traverses the rutilance illustrated sunk-sundered lines. Slosh! A gaspel truce leaks out over the casein coatings. Amid a fluorescence of spectacular mephiticism, there caoculates through the inconoscope, stealthily still, the figure of a fellow chap in the woolly gast, Popey O'Donoghue, the general of the Rushway. The Eidolon exhibits the seals of his orders, the star of the Son of Heaven, the girdle of Isodella the Colotica, the cross of Michaelides a Paleogos, the latchet of Jan of Nepomuk, the puff-puff and pom-pom of Powder and Paul, the great belt, band and bucklings of the martyrology of Gorman. It is for the customer's mud-wake servite, the victor. Please to not noise speech above your dreads, please to doughboys. Something's been wrong with this personage. He blanks his ogles because he confesses to all his televicious nieces. He blocks his nosos because that he confesses to everywhere he was always putting up his latest fingers. He wallops his mouther with a sword of Tuscan as because that he confesses how often he used to be opening her, how wanton he used to be undering her. He bundles all together his manuscripts with his pederasts, in as much as because that he confesses before all his hand complishes and behind all his confederacies. And here his cant came back, saying he couldn't steal no longer, yes, his cats come buck because he couldn't stay awake. He touched upon this tree of livings in the midst of the garden, for inasmuch as because that he confessed it to it on hillen and down dalem, and in the places which the lepers inhabit in the place of the stones, and in Pontefort just forgetting amorous, now he come to think of it, jolly well rotten generously, all over the old blocky shop. Pogger old Pompeo Dungershift, there will be a hen collection of him after evensong on the field of Hannah. Dumble down looties and gangster men, tin, 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 tin. But with a gesture expansive of Mr. Huge White Caterpollard, with sun-floored boat and hole, pulled up point-blank by mailbag mundanism at Old Valley Court, though the hissing density buck far of his malevolence tells how, when he was fast marking his first lord for cremation, the wife of his botham was the very lad's thing to alter his behind. Prostatates, pugilistes, double noises, precious. Defence in every circumstances of debaucheries, know the chaste stats. Tack pickets, pews, and cues to be palsy-putrid. Be at the pain, please, of not forgetting or mere betoken yourself to other prey. Correct me, please, commando, for Cossacks, but I abjure of it. No more basky bezigs for this Pole African, with Ascor Milles Eskermillas. I had my billyfell of duckish delights the whole Puckney time on Romeos and Julians, with their lamb stools in my kidneys and my ram's butter in their Sassenachar ribs, knee her, do her, and tray her, when the Syrian come dumb like the Welf on the fjord, and we praying players and pinching peace smokes, troopkers, Tommy Atkins all, for Father Petrie Spence of Parish Muslattery to go and leave us, and the crimson dawn to shell a light on the dark, you men, seen as sign, Slobberbogue, feeding and sleeping on the Huguenots, the snuggest spaniels where the lions tame, and raiding revelations over the Albigenesis, Sandus and Saintus and Soundus again. Yet still in all, spit for spat, like we chanted on Sunday schoon, every warson wearier carries a comnate in his knapsack. And unless I am getting fo gutfuls of the rudiments of savaged wildfire, I was game fellow will mate, and send us victorious with Knowles and Brownings, dumb sneak and curry, and all the fun I had in that Finnegans Wake. a strange man wearing a barrel. And here's a gift of Megs and Tegs. And as I live by chipping Norton, and 'tis iron fits the farmer eye, Arc Desedo, Renbo Rumba. Then were the halcyon days for our fellows, the loyal Leinsters, and we was the redug-out raw recruitioners, Praddies 3 and Pretish 2, a wheeze we has in our Wainwood Islands, we English, one long blue streak, Gisty and pity of Dirk Rosalind. With hand to hand, as Omar Cayenne was always jiggity-jogging about in his windowed courage, when our woos with the wenches went wind for a song, sing-girlies, singerettes, while Woodbine Willie, so popular with the poppy rossies, our Charney Chaplain, blued the air. Slantus, Banzine, Bisbasses, St. Pever and Bowl, and we all tuned in to hear the topmast noviality. Up the revels drown the rinks, and all my steps all round. Paddy Bonham, he vives, encore, and tig for tag, tug-a-tug-tug. My droom o' those days, why loved you above all the stress. Blow-hole brass hat and boy with his boots off, and the butch of our bunch and all. It was Bucku Bonza, believe me. I was a bare prive without my dog legs, but I did not give to one humpany dump, wing or wang, touching those thus engaged slavey generals of Tana Cornels, the militias delicious, pronouncing their very flank movements in some picture bosque. Bagus the Watwa. I could always take good cover of myself, and idols or earwickers, prayers for rain or combinations. I did not care 3 tankers, hoots, sham, hem or chaffet, for any feelings from my life privates on their retrograde leanings, because I have their honours both, my respectable sirs a sistershood off Lyndhurst Terrace, the putty Mrs. Chelana Dallin, and she, inventing her angur, can bear the troth on her alliance. And I know his hairiness, my respectable Mesdames Colonel on Mellay Street, Lieutenants Gunter Sawabs, and they would never as the aimes of Salvation let me down. Not on your bludger life, touters. No peeping pimpadours. And by Jova, I never went wrong nor let him doom till risky wark, rasky woke. At the head of the wake, up comes Stumblebum, ye old contemptible, his Ursian Geminal, in his Scots roods unreformed, and he went before him in that Nemcon enchilance, with the same old dumbstool story, and his upleave the fallener as is greatly to be petted, white sides to his beard. And I seen his breecher shirt offensive, and his Bartholomew Vadenhamags vice-a-vice them Charlotte runners, and how they gave love to him, and how he took the ward from us. Odious the fly-fly flirtation of him and hers. Just mermaid maddling it was he was. And my Orland for a revolver sword, by the splunters of Colt and Bungos the enemy, the Percy Rally got me, Mester, as true as there's an Almagnian Gauthabobus, to blow the grand off his ace-upper. This take its meast, and after meat the Dulwich. We insurrection, and be the procuratress of the hoary synods. Before he could tell Porrierigan to parry Lewis, I shot him, missus, like a wide sleever, hump to dump, tumble heaver. Taff, camel sensing that since they have given Braun and Ulan, the Volker boast sung is heading to sea Vermilion, but too well bred not to ignore the unstemlianess of his rifle's proceedings, in an effort towards autosatirization, effaces himself in favor of the ideology, all-wise behounding his lumpy hump of homosodalism, which means that if he has lain amain to lolly his liking, cabron, he may pop lily a young one to his heart, Cambroon. Oh, holy rasher, I'm believer, and oh, ho, bully claver of ye bragado goneril, the grand oh, spider. It is a name to call him Amsterdam fun. Ah, you were shutter reshotus, and sieger besieged. Aha, race of fierce marchins, counter a nation, oh-ho, of sharpshooters. But, miraculizing into the Dan Defier war cry, his bigot is bristling, as Jitinju triggety shittery pet. He shouts his thump, and fee-faw foul fingers up the high o's of their ahs. Bloody muddy muzzle, the buck be shotted. He'll unbuzzle no more graves, nor horn, nor honda, lugaro for gale gazelles in dead men's hills. Captain, backsights to his baird. his cumbulant ambulance, the frustrate four-star ruska cruscum dum alpha-corwan conundrum chuff. Taft, who as best as can, with the helps of Gosh and his blooded maker, has been sulphuring to himself all the pungatories of sin practice in failing to furrow theogonies of the damned, Trissim the mangoat, and the name of the most merciful, the august, the gracious one, in sober sooth and in sober civils, and to the dirtiment of the curtailment of his all of man? Not so? But, moments scoffing, but epoxy ominously deturbined, but them's bleaching banes will be after making a bashman's halo day out of the euphorious hagio-hygie cynicism of his die and be diademed. Yes, sir, in saber tooth and sober savils, se non è vero, that he leaves yet is my grief. He dared me to it, and he dared me do it, and be dattle I did dare done it, as Cocksnark of Kiltalk can tell, and Usser Ursuson of the victorious onrush, with all the rattles in his Arctic, as bold and as madhouse a bull in a meadows. Nout nitric kinky peart, all the foe, the sword of foam o' times, and none. For when me see him, and 12 o'clock and Roland all over our Lord's land, be heaving up that sob of tump for to claim his, for to whelp himself puddywalk, aye, and untuning his colothon in an exodus arse royal, deo yupto, at that instar to Igor laddens, pronto, I gave one double notch and I ups with my crozier, mirdo, with my how on armor and hits leg and arrow, cock, shock, rock, rug, sparrow. The abnihilization of the etim by the greening of the groaning of the grinder of the grunder of the first lord of Hertford explodotonates through pasturalia with an Ivan Morin Thororumble Frego Romboacity, amid which's general uttermost confusion are perceivable molotons scaping with molecules, while Coventry plumpkins fairly go smother themselves in the land-on elegance of Pinkadindy. Similar senatas are projectilized from Honolulu, Bulawayo, Imperial Rome, and modern atoms. They were precisely the 12s of clocks, none minutes, none seconds, at some seat of old Danelang's Congerrig, by dawny break in era. Taft, skimper scamper, his wool's gatherings all over Cromlin, what with the Bristol boys are thanes, and is it her tour on the crackery of the full 4-5 firearms, and the crockery of their dum-dum chumbers. For all the bulbs up the airs, Shatamovic. But, pulling a last stark Daniel with a less doga durk, while too greater than pardon painfully the issue of his mouth diminuendoing, vility of vilities, he becomes, allus vitally faint, sure enough, like Fawn McCool. Butt and Taft, desperate slave wager, and foeman feudal unshackled, now one and the same person, their fight upheld to right for a wee while, being baffled and tottered, umbraged by the shadow of old Ursia's magis qua mythical mulatto militiaman, the living by owning over the surface of the glebe, whose sway craven minions had cause to revile, as, too foul for hell, on the boiling mouse's burning brand, he falls by Gall's gilly, but keen-heartened by the circuminsistent of the Parks O'Reillys, in a hurdly-girdly Sicilian concert tone of their Fongina Barney brawl, shaken everybody's hands, while S.E. Morehampton makes leave to E.N. Shield Martin, after Meeting-House Lanigan has embraced Vergemouth Hall, and without falter or murmur or blatherhoot of softsterliness, pugnate the pledge of fiendship, duke to duke, with a common turn ouch to fest man and best man, as Tooth Sally's emotion palms it off like commodity tokens against a cocoa can-can cacocanution. When all the wormed was a-gadding, and Anthea first unfoiled her limbs wanderloot, was the way the wood wagged, where opter and after were samurized twins. They had their muttering ivies, and their murdering ivies, and their mouldering iris in that muscat grove, but there'll be bright Pliny flowers in Calumella's cool bowers, when the magpie's babble towers, scorching and screeching from the raven and dove. If these lobed the sex of his head, and these ate the seep of his troublers, he's dancing figgies to the spittle side and shoving out the sword. And he'll be buying boys and go gulling gells with his flossim and jessim of carm, silk and honey, while mine eyes playing Lancifer Lucifog, and what's duff as a bettle for us's makes coy cousin Corolane's more sweeter to we. So till but again Bodley shoots thorn rising germinal, let Bodley chow the fat of his anger, and badly bide the toil of his tub. The pump and pipe pingers are ideally reconstituted. The pother and bowls are Peter packed up. All the presents are determining as regards for the future the how-abouts of their past absences, which they might see on at hearing, could they once smell of tastes from touch. To aught find values for. The must over listingness, when X what is ungiven, as that were still held. Blunk. Shut 'em up. And Bud did down well right. And if he sung dumb in his glass darkly, speech lit face to face on all around. Vocifer adjutant, vice of our sounding, namely Abdullah Bulbul Amir or Ivan Slavansky Slavar in Old Confusalem. As to whom the major guilt feather pertained, it was Harkus Hippot's care to educe. Beauty's bath she's bound to bind beholders, and pride his purge has place a point in penance, and the law's own libel lifts and lames the low with the lofty. Be of the house. While the Kersse hunt they harrow the hill, for to rout them rollicking rogues from, rule those rackety romps from, rein their rockery rides from, rambling. Night-clothed, around the conqueror's sway. After their battle, thy fair bosom. There is too true enough in Solidan's island as in Morton, Germany, and from the Americans off to date back to land of engined Egyptians, assented from his opening before his inlookers of where his oxman's tongue stalled stable, the well-nourished one, lord of the 7 days, overlord of Seths and sons, the sat of all the sons which are in the ring of his system of the sats of his son, god of the scuffled, fallen, skill-filled felon, who he contains hangsters, who he constrains hersers, again changful, a mintage vasta, heavy on shirts, lucky with shifts, the topside hump-up stomach atween his shoudos fella, Misto T. Wiley spillet shots, who keepeth watch in Cummer Fet, whose spouse is Ann Liff, the dog's bladder, warmer of his couch in fore. We all, for whole men is lepers, have been nobbert wanterers in that chill childerness, which is our true name after the all-faulters, mugs luck to 'em, and bespeaking of love and lie detectors in venuvarities, what either the drug's truth of it, was there an iota of from the Faust to the last. And that is at most redoubtedly an overthrow of each and ilker man of us, I persuade myself, before Gow, gentlemen, so true as this are my cup-fin pot, as strode on these is my board shoulders. It's solicited, grobbling humbly, his round house of 7 orifices, of all, guilt shouters or crime mummers, to be said by, codnops, advices for, free of graces, scamps included, competitioning them, if they had studied jura, or when they had raced messaphysi. Husband of your wife better, or best man botcha lover of you yourself, how comes ever a body in our tailorized world to selve out this is, whether it gives a premium nobilis for our notomize or not, the first wriggle from the Ube events, whereom is man, that old offender, not their man, while he is the same, and full exampling, the pints in question, with some bice bills, and 6 to prove him hurtig. Soup's on. A time, and a fine time, when in I was a kidling, and the tarkies held sow-and supper. Let there beam a frish fry, and they sowed good rude broad with sweet mead in candle drums. I have just, let us surprise, been reading in a suppressed book. It is not with stempting by measures long and limited. The latter press is eminently legible, and the paper, so he eagerly seized upon, has scarcely been buttered in works of previous publicity, albeit in keener not case would I turf aside for pasteurization. Pack and paper paineth whom to his sacred scriptured sign, who straps it, scraps it, that might, if ashed, have hilt. Enough, however, have I read of it, like my good bedst friend, to augur in the hurry of the times that it will co-commend the widest circulation and a reputation coextensive with its merits when entrusted into safe and pious hands upon so edifying a mission as it, I can see, as is his. It is embellished with expurgative plates, replete in information, and a campaigning the action passion, slop-bang, whiz-crash, boomer-rattling from burst to past, as I have just been seeing, with my warmest venerations of a timorsome townside up the country lifer, guard placed the town, all those ever whelmed upon that preposterous blank seat before the word-craft of this early woodcutter, a master of vignettiens, and our finest grobsmith among all their orifices, and sugar and chowder, so splendidly English, Mr. Auberon Birdsley, Hub good chop, arson cheap, and well worth a try at. This Millefaughties. But the hazard you asks is justly ever behind his medal throw. Those sad, poor sad forengistanters, dusty chappy, dusty rust. She chairs. It is that something, Robian in that fellow, hamid and damned, did he have but Hugh de Brassey's Beardsley, his were mine of ancient guise, which come queers this any what Persian, which we, realizing us with perhaps adored of pain. There is among others, pleasant, whom I love, and which are favorists to mind, one which I have pushed my finger in for the movement, and, but for my seal ring is none to hand, I swear, she is highly catatharistic. And there is another which I have fondly fongered frequently, and when my signet is on sign again, I swear she is deeply significant. Culpo de dido, arse we say in the classes. Constful, we others said. What ravening shadow, what dovely line. Not the king of this age could richly I feast in oriental long gardens, with alternate night joys of 1,000 kinds but one kind. A Shahriar cobbler on me when I am lying, and whilst when I doot my sliding panel and I hear caw-caw, I have been ideally tumbling over the loose loaves, leaf lefts, jaggled casualty on the lamatory, as is my this is, as I must commit my lips to make misface for misfortune. Often, so far as I can chance to recollect from some far nights ago, so dim sweet is that selvish-ish dienance of to not to be able to be obliged to have to hold further anything than a stone's throw's fruits fall, when I, if you will excuse for me this informal leading down of ill-expressibles, enlivened toward the author of nature by the natural sins liggen go belimned theirs before me, how differended with the man-made Enoch's Constantinopolis, whether they be of a general Gulf stature, as asserted, or blossomly and blushing themselves under need of some hawthorn follies, am entrenched up contemplating of myself with my naked eye for relieving purposes in our truly vegetable garden. I sometimes, maybe, what has justly said of old Flanagan, awake from this or henceforwards, with some shock, shall I so render it, have, when I ope my shylight window and I see, cuckoo, a notion quiet involuntary of that I am cadging hapsnots, as at murmurandums of distant renations from fixsimilar phases or dugouts in the behind scenes of our earthwork, what roving shudder, what deadly loom, as this is at no spatial time processly, which regards to concrude chronology, about which, in fact, at spite of I having belittled myself to my gay gift name of insectarian, happy burgage's abeyance would make home, sweet town, hopigo lucre. My motto proprio, as I claim, cad's truck, I coined, I am highly pelaged and deeply gluttoned to mind hindmost hearts, to see by their loudest reports from my 3 spawn bottery parts, that columbophile and corvinophobe alike, when I have remassed me, my travelling self, as from Magellanic clouds, after my contractual expenditures, through the paraphyses of mere limb, my good grief, I am big, all too gooder. He beached the bark of his tail, and set to husband and vine, and the harper master told all the living conservancy, no Messiah, how that win again was in again. Flying the Persio Royal, with all aboard her, Padder and Madder, Hal and Sal, the sins of air with the Duchtars of Iran, and Mickamack a mock in a mock tub, hit the two Lulus and the Griffs at Finnegans Wake, the Wildemans, washed up white and delivered right, loud lauds to his luck hump and bejetties on Jonas, and they winked and wanked like Bailey beacons, till we woked up older men. From whose plultibust pre-aggravated by basket church theologies, they were nigh on 30 heroons in that Al-Rashil orthodox Draken. They were woe-like placed to say, in the matters of Ducomans number 1, with bears' respects to him and bulls' acknowledgments. Come on now, girls, lead off for Cara, whichever one of you wins, the two Jemuas and Jane Agra and Judy Tomboys, disassembling and taking him apart, the slammocks, with discrimination for his maypole, and a robin passing over his hump, drogeries in addendance, fronds, fishes, and fritzstool. 1, he had to diet the beetle. 2, he did hit himself, hodsfush. 3, all ever the pelican hunted with truly fond bullpen back thoughts since his Turk human life, where his personal low outhired his territorialism. The Ornor under the self-hide of his better metal was forsaken his children and lumbo-jumbo. 4, he was like Fintan for flood, and after sometimes too damned merely often on the saved side, saw he was. 5, regarding to prussiates or quasi-versing, he was and no better than he would have been before, he could have been better than what he warn't after. 6, blood, musk, or hashish, as coked diamond or penciloid, and bleaching him knackle-nude from all colorine matter, down to a bone-ash bitstuff. He's Tinkfirst tank, the same old dust amount on the same old tin-covered bauble class, Tots tittywink tosser, and bogus bagwind burster, whether fitting tires onto Danelop boys or fluttering flows for Lorettas, whatever the bucket brigade and the plug party says, touchant Arthur of the rum tipple and his camelottery and lioness looting, but with a layman's brute strength by Jacob and Isahur and the all salts or all sallies, what we warn to hear, Jeff, is the woods of chirps his cries to sing a loose sweet cheeriod and suck him up, the old cant rogue. Group A. You have just, beamed listening through, pig, his halted excerpt from John Whiston's 5-axled production, The Coach with the 6 Insides, from the Tales